Chapter 1293. The Dragon God Ancestral Temple has appeared. No one knew who was the first to let out a roar of surprise. Instantly, the expressions of the more than 2,000 dragon demons changed as they looked towards the center of the light pillar. Under the strong light, ordinary people couldn't see the appearance of the ancestral temple at all. However, everyone present was at least a beginner half-saint. With such powerful, vital essence to strengthen their five senses, they could clearly see the ancient ancestral temple hidden in the light pillar. The ancestral temple wasn't big and looked extremely ordinary. It was like the ancestral temple of a random mortal village. Green tiles, white bricks, red doors, black windows. Other than appearing in the Dragon God ancestral land, everything else was so ordinary. It was so ordinary that some dragons thought they were seeing things. The ancestral temple enshrines the spirit tablet and leaves behind the inheritance. Why is it so magnificent and dazzling? At this moment, the demon dragon crown prince chuckled and walked towards the light pillar. Hearing this, everyone had a thoughtful expression. However, they didn't directly walk over like the demon dragon crown prince. That dragon aura was so strong that some of them couldn't bear it and prostrated themselves on the ground. As for the other dragons, they were pressed to the ground by this dragon aura and couldn't move. Among the more than 2,000 people, there were only a few who could walk under this dragon might. Only the demon dragon crown prince was able to walk freely like the demon dragon crown prince. Big brother Tianyang, aren't you going? Seeing the demon dragon crown prince getting closer and closer to the ancestral temple, Chi Ingtian was puzzled. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. We don't know what's the situation with the dragon god ancestral temple. Why don't we let this bold demon dragon crown prince go in and test it out? If it doesn't work, I'll go in immediately. It's the same. Tianyang thought carefully and said, if he had absolute confidence, Tianyang would naturally rush in faster than anyone else. However, the Dragon God Ancestral Temple was a mysterious object that had existed since the birth of the dragon race in the ancient times. As for what was inside, perhaps even the strongest of the dragon race didn't know. It also contained the inheritance of countless dragon clan experts. The current Tianyang could at most fight against the weakest great saint. If he encountered a veteran great saint like the Crimson Dragon Sage, he would have to prepare to flee. Not to mention, there was also the inheritance of the Dragon Emperor inside. That was an existence equivalent to the Holy Emperor of the human world. Tianyang's brain must have been kicked by a donkey to rush in recklessly. At this moment, the pillar of light gradually shrank into a beam of light and then disappeared completely. The demon dragon crown prince also walked to the front of the ancient ancestral hall. With a warm smile on his face, he looked at everything in front of him and nodded slightly. Junior Su Han is here to seek the Dark Soul Dragon King's inheritance. I wonder if the Dragon God Ancestral Temple will grant my request. The demon dragon crown prince smiled. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Dark Soul Dragon King? What kind of Dragon King was that? After all, there were more than a dozen dragon emperors worshipped in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. There were also hundreds and thousands of dragon kings. There weren't many who entered the Dragon God Ancestral Temple in history. How could he remember all of them? However, what was even more unbelievable was that a genius like the Demon Dragon Crown Prince actually chose a Dragon King's inheritance. Before the Demon Dragon Crown Prince spoke, almost everyone thought that he was going to fight for the strongest Dragon Emperor's inheritance. However, the Demon Dragon Crown Prince's expression didn't change. He completely ignored everything around him and stood quietly on the spot with his head lowered. In the next moment, the Dragon God Ancestral Temple slowly opened. However, no one could see the scene inside from the outside. Many thanks to the Dragon God Ancestral Temple for giving me this opportunity. Looking at the open door, the Demon Dragon Crown Prince's expression didn't change. He slowly raised his head with a smile and said respectfully. Then, he stepped into the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. It seems like he didn't receive the inheritance immediately. Chi Ingtian said. Hearing this, Tianyang also nodded. At this moment, seeing that the demon dragon crown prince was unharmed and even went in, everyone couldn't hold back and rushed forward. Although they weren't clear about the thousands of Dragon King's inheritance, they knew the names of the dozen Dragon Emperors. I'm Wei Heng Shui. I'm here to seek the Dragon Emperor's inheritance, a high-level half-saint said confidently. However, in the next moment, a powerful force erupted from the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. That high-level half-saint was directly sent flying. When he wanted to enter the Dragon God Ancestral Temple again, he was shocked to find that there was an invisible force blocking him. Immediately, Wei Heng Shui cried out in regret. Seeing this, everyone's expression changed. This wasn't something that could be casually said. At this moment, the Dragon God Ancestral Temple opened its door. The surrounding people were stunned for a moment before they understood. The Demon Dragon Crown Prince's method of seeking the inheritance was only one of the methods. The right way was to enter the Dragon God Ancestral Temple and find their own opportunities. Immediately, more than 1,000 out of the 2,000 people entered the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. Big Brother Tianyang, let's go. Seeing this, Qi Ying Tian's heart jumped and said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded his head and followed him. Soon, more than 2,000 dragons, demons, and humans entered the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. This is the Dragon God Ancestral Temple? Looking at the surroundings, which were as simple as the outside world, Tianyang was stunned for a moment before he came to a realization. Although there didn't seem to be any changes, the space in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple had been modified and expanded by a powerful person. Otherwise, if the 2,000 people that just swarmed and were really like what the outside world looked like, it would have been crowded. Every memorial tablet is the location of an inheritance. As for Tianyang, he raised his head. The highest was the 17 Dragon Emperor memorial tablets, which stood at the peak and overlooked the world. Next were the thousands of Dragon King memorial tablets, and then the tens of thousands of Dragon Sage memorial tablets. Big Brother Tianyang, I seem to have sensed something, so I can accompany you to find the inheritance. At this moment, Qi Ying Tian's expression changed slightly as he looked into the distance. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded. In the Dragon God Ancestral Temple, there was no fighting. It was all about fate. When fate came, perhaps the Dragon Emperor's inheritance would descend on the peak of Wuzun. If fate didn't come, even a genius like the Saint's son Xinyuan might not be able to obtain the Dragon Sage's inheritance. Jin Zhan, Huang Yun, and the others also sensed their own fluctuations and hurriedly left. Huang CK and Huang Kiki proposed to act alone and left. Tianyang, on the other hand, walked in the huge Dragon God Ancestral Temple with Yin Xinyuan. However, no matter how Tianyang moved, there was still no fluctuation in the surroundings. Whether it was the Dragon Emperor, Dragon King, or even the Dragon Sage, there was no change at all. After a full hour, Tianyang was still in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. Suddenly, some of the dragons who noticed Tianyang revealed a trace of ridicule on their faces. A human wants to obtain the inheritance of our Dragon God Ancestral Temple. So what if he killed the Saint's son Xinyuan? The inheritance of the Dragon God Ancestral Temple is prepared for the Dragon Clan. A human, where did he get the confidence to dare to look for the inheritance here? Not necessarily. It's not like there are no humans who have obtained the inheritance of the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. However, with Qianyang's talent, he can't obtain the inheritance. Everyone chuckled and discussed. In the Dragon God Ancestral Temple, no one dared to make a move. If the Dragon God Ancestral Temple punished them, they would be completely out of luck with the inheritance. These dragons, they obviously can't obtain the inheritance themselves. How abominable! Yun Xinyuan followed Tianyang, revealing a look of dissatisfaction. If it weren't for the suppression of the Dragon God Ancestral Temple, Yin Xinyuan would have made a move long ago. Tianyang, on the other hand, continued to move forward with an indifferent expression. Maybe this guy is the legendary Forsaken Son of the Heavens. Even the heavens have abandoned him, so he can't even get an inheritance. Seeing that Tianyang had no reaction, the group of dragons spoke loudly again. Tianyang's expression didn't change at all as he continued to move forward. At this moment, Yun Xuanyuan's expression suddenly changed. Master, I seem to have sensed something. In the next moment, before Tianyang could speak, Yun Xuanyuan's figure automatically disappeared. Tianyang was also slightly stunned, then revealed a trace of a wry smile. He had a servant, but he, the master, didn't. Chapter 1294. Another half an hour passed. At this moment, even Tianyang's mood was somewhat irritable. He had placed all his hopes of becoming a saint in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. If there was no inheritance in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple that he could obtain, then he might as well go out and plunder the other inheritances in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. He had almost finished walking through the entire Dragon God Ancestral Temple. When he reached a place where there were no memorial tablets, he still didn't sense anything. Did the immortal heavenly lord offend the Dragon God? Tianyang muttered. He didn't feel any psychological burden when he ridiculed his own ancestor. As for the few dragons who had been mocking Tianyang since an hour ago, they were still far behind Tianyang, constantly mocking him. Tianyang followed the principle of ignoring idiots and didn't find trouble with them. I say, this kind of forsaken son won't implicate his future cultivation partner, right? It's possible. Among the tens of thousands of inheritances, he has great talent, but he doesn't have any inheritance. I wouldn't believe it if he said there's nothing wrong with him. Tis TSK, this kind of person is really. If he has a cultivation partner, just give her me so that I won't be harmed by this kind of loner. A beginner half-saint sneered. Relying on the fact that no one dared to make a move in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple, he immediately became unscrupulous. Hearing this, Tianyang's forward movement also stopped. Seeing this, the beginner half-saint who sneered was taken aback, and some fear appeared on his face. However, when he remembered that this was the Dragon God Ancestral Temple, he immediately became firm. Why did you stop? So you can hear us. We thought you were deaf. We thought the person who killed the Xianyuan saint was some kind of strong person. It turns out that he's just a good-for-nothing who can't even get an inheritance. I say, if you have a cultivation partner, boom. In an instant, a terrifying spike broke out from the ground under the beginner half-saint's feet and pierced through him. At the same time, the terrifying power of the origin spirit on the spike instantly shattered the origin spirit of the beginner half-saint. His torso was pierced through by the earth spike. His four limbs instantly exploded into blood and flesh that splattered in all directions. The faces of the two middle-level half-saints beside the beginner half-saints were also stained with blood and flesh. The entire dragon was stunned. You actually dare to make a move in the Dragon God Ancestral Shrine. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two rays of sword energy instantly appeared beside Tianyang, and they instantly severed the left and right arms of the two mid-level half-saints. Seeing that, the expressions of the countless people in the distance changed completely. Tianyang actually dared to fight in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. This was the resting place of countless dragon experts. It was also a place where people worshipped the Dragon God in ancient times. If he were to make a move here, it would be considered light if he didn't obtain the inheritance. It was very likely that he would be kicked out of the ancestral Dragon God land. In fact, there was even a possibility that they would anger the Dragon God and be obliterated. Isn't this guy a little too daring? In the distance, Jiang Shuling was completely dumbfounded. She was already the Snow God's son. Coming to the Dragon God Ancestral Temple was just a visit. Even if the Dragon Emperor took a fancy to Jiang Shuling couldn't accept it. The inheritance of the Snow God's son had already completely occupied Jiang Shuling. In addition to being shocked, Jiang Shuling also felt a little emotional. Her hearing was extraordinary, and she naturally heard what the beginner half-saint said before he was killed. If it were her, she would most likely have the intention to kill him, but most likely she wouldn't dare to make a move. This is probably the difference between me and him. Jiang Shuling smiled bitterly. At this moment, Tianyang, who had just finished making a move, suddenly changed his expression. A terrifying and powerful force directly suppressed him, making him unable to move. It was even more terrifying than the dragon aura that appeared when the dragon god ancestral temple appeared. This time, even if Tianyang used the sky cloud sword, there was no way he could break it. Seeing Tianyang's expression change, the two mid-level half-saints suddenly realized something and opened their mouths to laugh. In the next moment, Tianyang's figure disappeared from a spot. As for the two mid-level half-saints, they were seriously injured by the sudden explosion of spikes. What the hell? Looking at the large pile of carvings and drawings that suddenly appeared around him, Tianyang was slightly stunned. He thought that the dragon god ancestral temple would probably kill him directly if he killed someone in it, or even directly kicked him out. Although Tianyang had a way to save his life, even if the Dragon Emperor's remnant soul really attacked. What was the situation now? Letting him watch the carvings here? This is the history of the Dragon Tribe's development in the Xiantian Great World. What the hell are you talking about? At this moment, a majestic voice slowly rang out. The series of ancient carvings around him instantly exploded into light spots that filled the sky. Then, they rapidly condensed into a tall figure. The figure was tall, but not as huge as Huang CK and Huang Kiki. They were about 2.5 meters tall. There were only dragon scales on their bodies as armor. Vaguely, one could see the strong but not exploding muscles on their bodies. Their faces were also rough and bold. Their skin was dark, and their eyebrows were straight like swords and eyes like stars. Streams of powerful aura circled around this dragon. It seemed that even she was far inferior to him. Junior, I've been paying attention to you for a long time. I didn't expect that among so many dragon tribes, no one can compare to you. At this moment, the tall figure spoke slowly. Half a step to becoming a saint physically, primordial spirit, and genuine essence have reached the level of becoming a saint. I didn't expect that after so many years, there would still be someone who tried to become a saint at the 3 yuan level, the tall figure said. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. Still, you also try to become a saint at the 3 yuan level? Yes. Hearing this, the tall figure smiled proudly. I did try to become a saint at the 3 yuan level. However, in terms of primordial spirit becoming a saint, I was one step behind. In the end, I only managed to become a half-step primordial spirit saint and failed. But now, it's not that easy for you to become a saint at the 3 yuan level, the tall figure said. Said the tall figure. Tianyang pondered for a moment before he spoke. Who are you? He only knew the name of the 17 dragon emperors in the dragon god ancestral temple. He didn't know what they looked like. As for the thousands of dragon kings, Tianyang could count them on his fingers. As for the tens of thousands of dragon saints, Tianyang couldn't remember any of them. The tall figure obviously didn't expect Tianyang to answer like this. He almost stumbled and fell. Sky-burning dragon king. Sky-connecting dragon emperor? Seeing that the tall figure didn't answer, Tianyang guessed. The tall figure snorted coldly. I don't know who Sky-burning dragon king is, but how can a junior like Sky-connecting dragon emperor be compared to me? I am the Sky Tyrant Dragon God. The Dragon God Ancestral Temple worships me. Chapter 1295. Sky Tyrant Dragon God. The tall figure had an arrogant look on his face as he laughed heartily. He did not believe that Tianyang would not be moved after hearing this name. Tianyang was a little stunned when he heard this. He then asked the little golden girl, Do you know this Sky Tyrant Dragon God? No, I don't. Don't just call me a god. I've been in the Xiantian Great World for millions of years. What if this is a new god or a fake one? The little golden girl was speechless. Don't think that you know everything. Oh, Tianyang nodded, then glanced at the Sky Tyrant Dragon God. How do you compare to Goddess Shui? The Sky Tyrant Dragon God was stunned. What kind of development was this? According to the script, shouldn't Tianyang's face change drastically after hearing his name and immediately kneel down and beg for his inheritance? Not only did he not care, but he even asked about this and that. However, the Sky Tyrant Dragon God's face changed slightly when he heard Goddess Shui. Goddess Shui is a great god who has existed for countless years. I can't compare to her. But how do you know about Goddess Shui? The Sky Tyrant Dragon God looked sharply at Tianyang. At first, he thought that this was a naive human who was on the path to becoming a saint at the 3 yuan level like him. Now, it seemed like that was not the case. A few days ago, I beat up the goddess Shui's divine child. Tianyang chuckled. The goddess Shui's divine child was, of course, Jiang Shuling. What? You beat up the divine child chosen by goddess Shui in the Xintian Great World. However, Tianyang did not expect that his words would scare the sky tyrant dragon god so much that he jumped up. His face was full of disbelief. A few days ago, he found out through various channels that someone in his hometown had been chosen by goddess Shui to become one of the divine children. To be chosen by someone like goddess Shui, one must be extremely talented. In the end, he was beaten up by this human. The sky tyrant dragon god did not doubt Tianyang's words at all. After all, he was the dragon god worshipped in the dragon god ancestral temple. On his home ground, he knew very well who was lying and who wasn't. However, it was precisely because of this that he was shocked. Speaking of which, you didn't call me over just to chat with me, right? Tianyang looked around and muttered. Because of Jiang Shuling, Tianyang's impression of the word God had dropped drastically. As a result, he didn't have much respect for the tyrant dragon god. Cough, 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 cough. The tyrant sky dragon god coughed violently at Tianyang's words. Was he supposed to say that he wanted Tianyang to become the dragon god's son? Even the son of God, chosen by the snow goddess, who was stronger than him, had been beaten up by Tianyang. How could Tianyang agree to become the son of God, who was weaker than the snow goddess? Even the heavenly tyrant dragon god himself would not be willing to do so. When I saw a cultivator on the path to becoming a saint at the 3rd level, I was filled with emotions. That's why I pulled you in. The sky tyrant dragon god coughed twice and quickly regained his composure. Do you know what God is? At this point, the tyrant sky dragon god's expression became extremely solemn. Tianyang was taken aback when he heard that. He really didn't know. Even the little golden girl was curious. After falling into the Xintian Great World, she had almost forgotten about the existence of the Xintian Great World. I don't know. Tianyang shook his head. Above the sage emperor is the emperor and God. The tyrant sky dragon god said solemnly. In the ancient times of the Xintian Great World, I touched upon the realm above the sage emperor. After countless years of hard work, I finally broke through the barrier and stepped into the godly state. The godly state is the limit of what the Xintian Great World can accommodate. Once you break through to the godly state, you will be summoned by the strongest god realm in all the worlds and step into the god realm. The godly state has another name. It's called the Imperial Emperor Realm, said the tyrant sky dragon god. Tianyang nodded when he heard that. So that was how it was. The Sage Emperor Realm wasn't the end of the martial path. Tianyang knew that very well. He just didn't know what the realm above the Sage Emperor Realm was. However, what Tianyang did not notice was that in the Heavens Expanse Saint Palace, the Heavens Expanse Saint Spirit looked as if he had been struck by lightning when he heard the words Emperor. I am the dragon god of the Xintian Great World, the tyrant sky dragon god, said the tyrant sky dragon god proudly. So let me ask you, do you want to be my deity? Be my deity, and you will receive my inheritance and become the second tyrant sky dragon god. Allow me to decline, Tianyang said decisively. The tyrant sky dragon god's face fell when he heard that. Although he had expected this, he didn't expect Tianyang to decline so decisively. Look at you now. You're only at the peak of Wuzun. It was probably a fluke that you were able to defeat the snow god's deity. Who knows, you might be killed when the snow god's deity grows up. Although becoming a saint with 3 yuans is very powerful, you might not succeed. If you fail, you won't be able to catch up with the snow god's deity. By then, your chances of becoming a god will be slim, said the tyrant sky dragon god earnestly. It wasn't easy for a god like him to find a deity's deity. It wasn't easy for him to find someone who walked the same path as him and was powerful. If he didn't try his best to recruit him, who would he find? Oh, Tianyang raised his eyebrows when he heard that. In the next moment, 7 different colored lights slowly appeared in his hand. The Saint Realm sword principle condensed into the shape of a sword. The life and death principle condensed into a black and white ball of light. The boundless principle was like flowing clouds, ethereal and difficult to find. The manifestation principle was chaotic and seemed to encompass everything. The Saint Realm Array principle and Saint Realm Pill principle, respectively, turned into arrays and pills. The primordial spirit condensed into a tiny primordial spirit. It emitted the aura of a saint realm. The tyrant sky dragon god was dumbfounded when he felt the 7 saint realms in Tianyang's hand. 7 saint realms? Including the physical sanctification and true yuan sanctification that he had yet to succeed in, wouldn't that mean he had 9 saint realms? What kind of monster was this? At first, the tyrant sky dragon god thought that Tianyang walked the same path as him. Sorry, we're not the same. Excuse me. Pretend I didn't say anything. The tyrant sky dragon god was silent for a long time. 7 saint realms. The tyrant sky dragon god's heart was in turmoil. Even the famous God Realm experts in the God Realm couldn't achieve 7 saint realms when they were at the peak of Wuzun. Moreover, Tianyang's limit was 9 saint realms. The tyrant sky dragon god had never heard of a 9 saint realm expert. At this thought, the tyrant sky dragon god seemed to have made up his mind. In that case, I won't force you. 9 saint realms. His future was limitless. You might as well form a good relationship with him. Since you and I are on the same path of 3 nascent saints, I'll lend you a hand. Consider it as making up for my regret back then. This is a body tempering technique I obtained after I stepped into the Dragon Emperor realm. It's extremely mysterious. Although I haven't cultivated it to a high level, and it's not a peerless emperor technique, it's suitable for you. The Tyrant Sky Dragon God said. Streaks of lightning flashed in his hands. Chapter 1296. It was as if the Tyrant Sky Dragon God was controlling tens of thousands of lightning bolts. In just an instant, the terrifying thunderstorm engulfed the entire space. I still don't know what this strange secret technique is called, and I haven't really cultivated it to the beginner level. However, just a little bit of it has benefited me immensely. My physical body has become stronger even in the Dragon Emperor realm. I've kept this secret technique in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple for hundreds of millions of years. It's a pity that too few people have walked the path of becoming a 3-yuan sage. There are even fewer people who have entered the Dragon God Ancestral Temple and can let me know about it. Therefore, this is the first time this secret technique has appeared in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. The lightning in the Tyrant Sky Dragon God's hands seemed to be about to engulf the entire world. Moreover, Tianyang could clearly sense that the lightning wasn't summoned by the Tyrant Sky Dragon God himself. Instead, it was summoned by the heavens to destroy the item in the Tyrant Sky Dragon God's hands. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying auras burst out from the Tyrant Sky Dragon God's hands. In the next instant, the Tyrant Sky Dragon God's eyes narrowed. Break! The lightning that filled the sky disappeared completely as if it had never existed. At the same time, the secret technique that the Tyrant Sky Dragon God had taken out so seriously appeared in front of Tianyang. It was a piece of crystal clear, pure white bone with an irregular shape. Tianyang's heart skipped a beat. Why did he feel that this thing looked familiar? I obtained this secret technique by chance when I was traveling through the starry sky. The body tempering technique within it is extremely profound, but it doesn't seem complete. If I can obtain the complete technique, my physical strength might improve even more. However, since you want to cultivate your body to become a sage, an incomplete one should be able to help you, the Tyrant Sky Dragon God said. At this moment, the bone in the Tyrant Sky Dragon God's hands suddenly burst out with a terrifying black light. In the next instant, it rushed toward Tianyang. Immediately, it imprinted on Tianyang's chest and fused into Tianyang's body. F***, what's going on? The Sky Tyrant Dragon God was also stunned. He had toyed with the bone for so many years, but he had never seen it move on its own. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly remembered that he had seen this bone before. Immortal divine body, undying eyes. The next moment, the bones that had fused with Tianyang's torso suddenly released a huge amount of information into Tianyang's mind. Immortal divine body, indestructible bones. The imperishable eye was a superpower that cultivated eye techniques, while the imperishable bone was the foundation to forge the immortal divine body. Even Tianyang had never expected that he would obtain the second level of the immortal divine body from the dragon god ancestral temple. Meanwhile, Tianyang also realized why, no matter how hard the tyrant dragon god tried to cultivate, he would only be able to learn a little. Without the immortal bloodline, how could one cultivate the immortal divine body? It seems that you are the true master of this ability. Seeing Tianyang's sudden realization, the tyrant dragon god immediately realized what was going on. Tianyang definitely had some connection with this bone. The next moment, Tianyang sensed something and immediately sat down cross-legged to cultivate. The immortal divine fire burned fiercely on the surface of his body, and the apocalyptic flames also burned in his eyes. The immortal bloodline was operating at a crazy speed. This is... The tyrant dragon god's pupils contracted as he took a few steps back in disbelief. He stared at the flames that were coming out of Tianyang's body. Immortal! Immortal! The next moment, a terrifying bloodline pressure exploded from Tianyang's body. The tyrant dragon god could not fight back at all. He was sent flying by Tianyang's bloodline pressure. However, this was only a projection of the tyrant dragon god's will. He recovered in an instant and stared at Tianyang. Immortal bloodline. Isn't the immortal bloodline in the realm of gods? Could it be that this person fell from the realm of gods? The tyrant dragon god's heart was in turmoil, but he did not dare to say anything. If news of this spread to the realm of gods, countless gods and emperors would cross the heavens to come to the great mystic cosmos. However, he only obtained the first level of body tempering technique. It's still far from enough for his physical body to reach sainthood. This kid actually cultivated a little bit of the Buddhist sect's body tempering technique. TSK, not bad. But the most important thing is the body of the dragon race. Since that's the case, I'll let you benefit from it. The tyrant dragon god chuckled. At this moment, a drop of blood flew out from an unknown corner. It contained a vast amount of bloodline power. Even the blood essence of the great sage of the dragon race that Kaingshan had obtained and the blood essence of the Northern Frost Dragon King that Tianyang had absorbed were far from enough. This was the blood essence of the Dragon Emperor that the tyrant dragon god had left behind. The tyrant dragon god was not dead, so naturally, he would not leave a memorial tablet in the dragon god ancestral shrine. However, the dragon god ancestral shrine also contained his inheritance. For the human race, it was the immortal divine body, the indestructible bone. For the dragon race, it was this drop of blood essence. TSK, I wanted to nurture the next genius of the dragon race, but it all went to you. The tyrant dragon god curled his lips and flicked his finger, sending the drop of blood essence into Tianyang's dantian. The immortal divine flame on Tianyang's body instantly surged, and his pupils contracted to the extreme. The blood essence of the Dragon Emperor contained immense power. It was a great opportunity for a saint. However, for Wu Zun at his peak, this opportunity was accompanied by endless danger. After all, the power of the Dragon Emperor's blood essence was enough to make Wu Zun at his peak explode. Veins popped out on Tianyang's forehead. The divine desolate heaven spirit art circulated wildly, and the immortal divine flame burned wildly. Let's hope he can survive. If he survives, he'll be reborn. If not, he'll definitely die. The tyrant sky dragon god sighed, and the projection of his will dissipated. Tianyang sat cross-legged on the ground, surrounded by countless flames. The profound sky great world, the central divine prefecture. Yin Xuanyuan's spirit lamp is still flickering. It seems that the saint is dead, and Yun Xinyuan escaped, but she's severely injured. An elder in the Xinyuan family said coldly, "The saint is dead, but the Xinyuan saintess didn't die with him. That bitch really doesn't remember the Xinyuan family's 100 years of kindness." The saint and saintess went to kill that bastard Tianyang. Therefore, it's most likely that Tianyang killed the saint. That's why the two of us Grand Elders went to attack the true dragon sacred domain. As for the Grand Elder, he went to the dragon god ancestral land. If he saw anyone from the true dragon sacred domain, he would kill them. If he saw Yun Xinyuan, he would imprison her. Once everything was settled, he would kill her. As for Tianyang, a malicious glint flashed in the elder's eyes. His soul would be extracted, and he would suffer a fate worse than death for 1,000 years. Chapter 1297. In the Dragon God Ancestral Shrine, Tianyang sat cross-legged in the shrine with his eyes closed. His expression was solemn. Tianyang's immortal bloodline had reached a certain level, and cultivating the indestructible bones would not be much of a problem. However, the indestructible bones was ultimately a body-refining technique based on the immortal bloodline. It could not allow Tianyang's physical strength to advance by leaps and bounds and enter the saint realm. Therefore, the tyrant dragon god had injected a drop of his blood essence into Tianyang's body for him to refine. However, how could the dragon emperor's blood essence be refined so easily? A week had passed, and Tianyang had only refined 1/5 of it. The embryonic form of the dragon emperor's body was also growing stronger. However, Tianyang did not sense any chance of sanctifying his physical body at all. Sanctifying the physical body is definitely not as simple as accumulating physical strength. It's just like sanctifying the primordial spirit. Tianyang muttered to himself. Rays of light flashed in his eyes. Sanctifying the physical body was to use the physical strength to knock open the door to the saint realm and enter it. Since ancient times, there have been very few people who had sanctified their physical body. Currently, in the Xintian Great World, there are only a handful of people who had sanctified their physical body. They were all veteran experts who had been sanctified for many years. None of them had taken the path of sanctifying the third level. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to say that Tianyang had taken the path of sanctifying his physical body alone. Hundreds of millions of years ago, the tyrant dragon god had also taken this path alone. In the end, he had failed. After sanctifying the primordial spirit, the difficulty of sanctifying the physical body will increase tremendously. After sanctifying the physical body of the tyrant dragon god, will it be much more difficult to sanctify the primordial spirit? Tianyang closed his eyes and muttered to himself. Rays of flames were refining the dragon emperor's blood essence in his body. The dragon patterns on the embryonic form of the dragon emperor's body were also glowing. Tianyang's physical strength was also growing stronger. However, no matter how strong it was still just a realm. It could not transcend mortality and become a saint. Is it because the heavenly Tao is flawed, or is it because the human Tao is unfair? Tianyang murmured to himself as his eyes flickered. Inside his body, the undying divine flames roared as they continuously refined the dragon emperor's blood essence. Why does the divine path surpass the other paths? Why? Tianyang asked himself. He seemed to have vaguely grasped something. The saint realm, sword Tao, life and death Tao, myriad Tao, boundless Tao, pill Tao, and array Tao. Tianyang had mastered 6 divine paths, and with the addition of 3 divine paths, he had 9 divine paths, surpassing everything, peerless since the ancient times. However, so what? No matter how many saints there were, it was just an accumulation of numbers. Tianyang could clearly feel that the advantage of numbers of saints was becoming less and less obvious after each battle. In the battle with the Xinyuan Holy Sun, he had relied on his strongest killing move, the Heavenly Firmament Sword, to kill the Xinyuan Holy Sun. It had nothing to do with the 7 divine paths he had mastered. If the number of divine paths is accumulated, then I can definitely accumulate 10 divine paths, or even 100 divine paths, or even 1,000 divine paths. However, what's the use? Tianyang kept asking himself. His physical strength had reached a critical point after absorbing the Dragon Emperor's blood essence, but he had not realized it. The boundless divine spirit had not reminded him either. Although Tianyang was not in an epiphany, he had entered a very strange state. If one had to describe Tianyang's current state, it would be Tao enlightenment. I have mastered many divine paths. Then how am I strong? All this time, Tianyang had only been cultivating various divine paths. He had only cared about cultivation and had not paid much attention to cultivation. At this moment, when he had reached the bottleneck of the physical sanctification realm, there was finally a moment where he could sort out the results of his decades of cultivation. Myriad destruction. In an instant, Tianyang opened his eyes. A ball of extremely bright light shot out from his eyes. In the next moment, Tianyang's aura changed abruptly, learning the best of all, integrating all the divine paths in the heavens. This is my Tao. The myriad Tao is the Tao of the myriad saint. However, the myriad Tao is only the surface. In the heavens, in all things, everything has an origin, and that is the Tao of chaos. Tianyang roared. Suddenly, in the sky, terrifying thunder roared. 9 divine paths? This was only the surface. Although Tianyang had many opportunities in the vast heavens, was there no one else who had comprehended the 9 divine paths? There was, but the 9 divine paths were not the reason for one's strength. The reason why the 9 divine paths were strong was because the 9 divine paths were the ultimate of Wuzun. A true genius could comprehend a great Tao that truly belonged to him from the 9 divine paths. At this moment, Tianyang had comprehended the Tao. He had comprehended his own Tao. With the Tao of chaos as the foundation, integrate all the heavens and command the heavens. Tianyang roared. Suddenly, in Tianyang's dantian, traces of Tao of chaos appeared. Wisps of primordial chaos aura could be sensed from it. They were extremely weak, as if they would dissipate with a gentle touch. However, this trace of Tao of chaos pointed directly to the origin of chaos. Boom! Bolts of lightning flashed. A terrifying bolt of tribulation lightning condensed in the sky and crashed down on Tianyang. Tianyang, on the other hand, stood up with a smile on his face. The immortal divine fire retracted into his body. The Dragon Emperor's blood essence was also devoured by the Tao of chaos the moment it condensed. The endless spirit ocean seemed to have merged with the Tao of chaos. Because Tianyang was born with terminated meridians and created his own supreme technique, he was able to step into the limit of every realm and even break through it. It was only then that he could comprehend the origin of chaos when he comprehended the divine paths. He had even condensed a trace of the origin of chaos. Everything was born from chaos, and everything returned to chaos. From now on, Tianyang only had one great path left. At the same time, he also had countless great paths. Golden light flashed on the surface of the Dragon Emperor's body. Tianyang's bones now had the same aura as the Undying Eye. The origin of chaos had condensed, and his physical body had become a saint. At the same time, his true Yuan had entered the saint realm. As long as he passed this tribulation, Tianyang would truly enter the saint realm, the ancestral land of the dragon god, billions of miles away. Shilling State, Jinlong Sacred World. The Xianyuan family is really going all out. 2 supreme elders and 2 great sages have come out just to deal with our true dragon sacred world. The red dragon saint was bathed in blood. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stared at the 2 elders in front of him. 2 grand elders of the Xianyuan family. At the same time, 2 great saints. Neither of them was weaker than the red dragon saint. Now that they attacked together, even the red dragon saint was severely injured in just a few minutes. Originally, the Xianyuan family didn't want to pursue the matter of Xianyuan Kong dying in the Jinlong sacred world. However, the Xianyuan family's holy son died in the ancestral land of the dragon god. The most likely culprit is Tianyang from the Jinlong sacred world. One of the elders said indifferently, "The Jinlong sacred world is strong, but it's not strong enough to challenge the Xianyuan family. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for getting involved with Tianyang." In the next moment, the two grand elders of the Xianyuan family gathered beams of powerful light in their hands. They were about to kill the Red Dragon Saint with one move. Destroy the Jinlong sacred world? The Xianyuan family is still lacking. Hearing this, the corners of the Red Dragon Saint's mouth curled up. In the next moment, strange and mysterious runes suddenly appeared behind him. Jinlong sacred world formation. The Red Dragon Saint roared and poured all of his great sage, true yuan into it. In an instant, a terrifyingly powerful barrier was formed and blocked the attacks of the two grand elders. What kind of technique is this? Seeing this, the two grand elders of the Xianyuan family turned serious. In the next moment, the Red Dragon Saint laughed loudly and stepped into the Jinlong sacred world. The Jinlong sacred world is not something that two great sages can challenge. Damn it, break! The two of them roared at the same time. Their great sage, true yuan, gathered and slammed into the barrier. However, the barrier was not damaged at all. Seeing this, the faces of the two grand elders of the Xianyuan family turned ugly. Oof. Looks like this is the Jinlong sacred world's last resort. The formation will run out of energy eventually. I like to see how long the Jinlong sacred world can last. One of the elders sneered and stood where he was, waiting quietly. Besides, even if we can't break the Jinlong sacred world's turtle shell, in the ancestral land of the dragon god, the Jinlong sacred world and Tianyang will be killed by the other great sage of the Xianyuan family. Chapter 1298. Boom, boom, boom. It was vast and terrifying. It was like a sea of lightning that reached the heavens, pressing down on Tianyang. At this moment, the lightning was no longer like the Nine Destruction Golden Lightning. It looked extremely terrifying and oppressive. This sea of lightning was very ordinary. It was like the lightning in an ordinary rain. However, every time it fell, it would cause Tianyang's body, which had already stepped into the saint realm, to explode into pieces of flesh and blood. Tianyang still had a smile on his face. His expression did not change as he stood in the sky. It was a pity that after the tyrant dragon god had passed on all the inheritance to Tianyang, the projection of his consciousness in the dragon god ancestral temple had dissipated. At this moment, he could not see Tianyang's current appearance. Otherwise, he would definitely be extremely shocked. This lightning tribulation was the real sage emperor tribulation. Although it was slightly weaker, for an ordinary sage, it was still a terrifying tribulation that would turn him into ashes after a few hits. As expected of the lightning tribulation after becoming a sage in 3 yuan, it is indeed very powerful. Streaks of immortal fire burned on Tianyang's body. After successfully cultivating the immortal divine body and the indestructible bones, Tianyang's immortal fire had also become much stronger. If it were not for the terrifying destructive power in the streaks of lightning, Tianyang could have even passed through the lightning tribulation without any injuries. However, it seems like the Chaos Origin still needs a lot of training to become stronger. Why don't I devour this wave of lightning tribulation? Tianyang smiled slightly. It was not the first time he had devoured lightning tribulation. However, this was the first time he had devoured a sage emperor tribulation. Whoosh! Tianyang's figure instantly disappeared from the spot. The next time he appeared, he was in a vast sea of lightning. Boom, 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 boom. As if angered by Tianyang's brazen provocation of the sea of lightning, waves of lightning surged in the sea of lightning with endless destructive power and charged toward Tianyang. Primal chaos essence, devour. Tianyang roared. Instantly, a stream of primal chaos chi appeared around him. Instantly, the endless waves of lightning were swallowed by Tianyang's primal chaos chi. As for Tianyang, he remained seated on the spot, allowing the vast sea of lightning to batter his body. Although Tianyang's physical body had reached the sage realm, his goal was far beyond that. Not only did he want his fleshly body to reach the sage realm, but he also wanted his fleshly body to reach the great sage realm, or even the monarch realm. This vast sea of lightning was a great opportunity for him to rapidly strengthen his physical body. Boom, boom, boom. A seemingly endless sea of lightning struck Tianyang's body. Tianyang's powerful body, which had been fused with the chaos aura and had completed the 8th refinement of the 9-tempered dragon body, was torn apart by the destructive force. Blood spurted out and blood splattered everywhere. In the next moment, the burning of the undying flame intensified the pain of his body being torn apart. However, Tianyang's expression did not change at all. He chuckled and activated the indestructible bones to continue repairing himself. At the same time, he used the chaos aura to summon endless lightning again. The rolling lightning refined the divine body, and the myriad Daos refined the primal chaos. Tianyang frantically tore apart, repaired, tempered, and became stronger in this endless sea of lightning. The birth and death of all things originated from the primal chaos. Tianyang's understanding of the primal chaos essence grew stronger as he was struck between life and death by the endless lightning tribulations. What Tianyang did not know was that although the Sage Realm had touched upon the primal chaos essence to a certain extent, the primal chaos essence was still the primal chaos essence. Only the Sage Emperor Realm could truly comprehend the primal chaos essence. When he stepped into the Sage Realm, he had already comprehended a trace of the primal chaos essence. Although it was only a trace, it was a huge difference to the Sage Realm of ordinary sages. Therefore, the lightning tribulations he summoned were extremely powerful and terrifying. The Sage Emperor Tribulation. Someone from the Xinyuan family is here, outside the ancestral dragon godland. A scholarly youth held a pitch-black pearl in his hand as he looked at the great sage of the Xinyuan family, who was high up in the sky and looking down on everyone. The great sage of the Xinyuan family looked at the scholarly youth with a face full of fear. Demon Dragon Crown Prince, this has nothing to do with you. If you want to leave, leave quickly. Otherwise, you might not be able to leave in a moment. The great sage of the Xinyuan family said coldly. Although the Demon Dragon Crown Prince had killed many of the Xinyuan family's geniuses, the Xinyuan family was still unwilling to offend him. After all, the Demon Dragon Crown Prince was a mystery that everyone knew. As for the Xinyuan family, they knew a little about him, so they definitely did not want to provoke the existence behind the Demon Dragon Crown Prince. Hearing this, the Demon Dragon Crown Prince smiled. Is that so? However, the Demon Dragon Crown Prince did not seem to have any intention of staying outside the ancestral dragon godland. After confirming the direction, he immediately left. He also knew what kind of battle was going to happen next. In the next moment, figures appeared one after another. Most of them were geniuses who could not obtain the inheritance and were expelled from the ancestral dragon god temple. When they saw the great sage of the Xinyuan family on the dome, their expressions changed drastically, and they hurriedly left. As for Huang CK and Huang Kiki, because of their desolate bloodline, they did not obtain any inheritance and were expelled at this moment. Looking at the great sage of the Xinyuan family, whose face was filled with killing intent, they understood the reason and were extremely worried. I hope Tianyang won't come out so soon. Anyone could see that the great sage of the Xinyuan family was definitely targeting Tianyang. Even if Tianyang broke through to the Saint Realm in the ancestral dragon god temple, a Saint Realm cultivator would definitely be powerless in front of a great sage. At this moment, Hai Yuanxiong's expression was extremely ugly. Only now did she know that Hai Tian was killed by Tianyang. Although I don't want to see a genius die, he dared to attack my Azure Sea Dragon clan. Being killed by a great sage of the Xinyuan family can be considered a worthy death. Hai Yuanxiong snorted coldly and left with the rest of the Azure Sea Dragon clan. Suddenly, the ancestral dragon godland in the true dragon sacred world turned solemn. A storm was coming, and the wind was blowing. Boom! The vast sea of lightning let out a final roar, and a terrifying thunderstorm attacked Tianyang. However, Tianyong only chuckled and blocked the powerful impact with his body. Half a year, Tianyong had been cultivating in the ancestral dragon god temple for half a year, comprehending the origin of chaos and using his true yuan and physical body to forcefully become a saint would more or less have some flaws. In this half a year, Tianyong's Tao foundation had been forged to perfection. His true yuan was still at the level of someone who had just entered the saint realm. However, Tianyong's strength could no longer be measured by the saint realm. His body of the Dragon Emperor had been completely refined, and his indestructible bones were nearing completion. At this moment, Tianyong was not far away from the legendary flawless golden body. As for the chaotic chi, it had grown a lot in this half a year. It had grown from a wisp invisible to the naked eye to a fifth of the thickness of a finger. The current me is a true saint. Tianyong smiled and took a deep breath, and the chaotic chi returned to his body. In an instant, 3 rays of light of different colors bloomed above Tianyong's head. Within his dantian, the origin of chaos released endless light. At this moment, all the stars in the sky trembled slightly. In the dark and deep starry sky, countless stars lit up at this moment. Countless people with cultivation bases above the Tao fire realm seemed to see a figure in front of them. This figure seemed to be the highest of all Taos, and all the Taos in the universe bowed down to him. 3 essences as one. Chapter 1299. Boom! An extremely terrifying explosion resounded outside the ancestral dragon godland. Bolts of lightning flashed and turned into a golden lightning spear in the blink of an eye. Then it fiercely smashed into the huge barrier. It's been half a year. The old man's face was ferocious. That damn Tianyong. He still hasn't come out. Are the people of the true dragon sacred domain all good for nothings? It's been half a year and no one has come out. This old man was the great sage sent by the Xianyuan family to guard the ancestral dragon godland. He was known as the Thunder Great Sage. Legend had it that he had killed countless great sages and cultivated a powerful technique that was close to the Holy Emperor realm, the Heavenly Punishment Lightning Technique. Therefore, even the Red Dragon Sage was not sure if he could defeat him. Originally, the Thunder Great Sage had planned to go to the True Dragon's sacred domain immediately after killing Tianyong to help the 2 supreme elders break the gate of the True Dragon's sacred domain and enter the True Dragon's sacred domain to start a massacre. In the end, half a year had passed, and the Thunder Great Sage still had not seen anyone from the True Dragon's sacred domain, let alone Yin Xianyuan and Tianyong. The Thunder Great Sage was naturally furious. He had done things like attacking the barrier of the ancestral dragon godland countless times. Inside the ancestral dragon godland, the Thunder Great Sage did not know that the spatial gate in the ancestral dragon god temple also had the function of providing information about the outside world. As for Qi Ying Tian and the others, their expressions were extremely ugly as they looked at the Thunder Great Sage's furious appearance outside the spatial gate. Their hearts were extremely heavy. I didn't expect the Xianyuan family to be so ruthless. They even took out the Thunder Great Sage. Jean Jean's expression was ugly as he stared at the Thunder Great Sage outside the spatial gate. Even though they were separated by a spatial gate, they could still feel the Great Sage's oppressive force. If they went out, they would definitely die. Fortunately, we planned to wait for Big Brother Tianyong to come out before leaving. Otherwise, if we went out early and were caught by the Thunder Great Sage, we would definitely die. Qi Ying Tian let out a long sigh. It was Qi Ying Tian's decision that saved the lives of the people from the True Dragon's sacred domain. At the side, Yin Xianyuan had an ugly expression as he looked at the Thunder Great Sage. At this moment, Yin Xuanyuan's heart was as cold as ice. The Thunder Great Sage was wreaking havoc outside. At the same time, his furious roars were transmitted to everyone's ears through the spatial gate. She was no exception. She had never imagined that the Xianyuan family would want her dead just because the holy son of Xianyuan was dead and she was still alive. Could it be that he's afraid that the Xianyuan family's interests will be damaged if the Xianyuanian body falls into the hands of others? Yun Xuanyuan's expression did not change at all, but his heart was bitter to the extreme. She was not picked up by the Xianyuan family. In fact, her parents were two elders of the Xianyuan family. However, the decision to kill her had to be approved by all the elders. She had already said that for the sake of the Xianyuan family, her parents would even kill her. Immediately, cracks began to appear in Yun Xuanyuan's unbreakable thoughts. However, although the Dragon God Ancestral Temple will continue to open, everyone who stays in the Dragon God Ancestral Temple will be kicked out after all the inheritances are received. Right now, I can't even contact my father. Qi Yingtian's expression was extremely ugly as he spoke. Hearing this, the expressions of the other dragons changed. You definitely can't contact him with a communication token, but what about the bloodline connection? You're now a peak half-saint. Even if the Dragon God Ancestral Land is extremely far from the true Dragon Sacred Domain, it shouldn't matter if you use the bloodline connection. Lan Ji hurriedly said. If they couldn't contact the Red Dragon Saint, didn't that mean that they couldn't deal with the Thunder Great Sage outside? Even more terrifying was that even Qi Yingtian's bloodline could not contact the Red Dragon Saint. This meant that the true Dragon Sacred Domain might already be. All of a sudden, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Outside, the Thunder Great Sage roared angrily again. After receiving the inheritance, Qi Yingtian's cultivation broke through again, reaching the peak half-saint level. Jin Zhan also reached the peak of the advanced half-saint level. Lan Ji and Huang Yun also advanced a level. If they joined forces and used all their trump cards, they could even fight a great sage. However, in front of a great sage, they were like chickens and dogs, unable to withstand a single blow. Before Big Brother Tianyang received the inheritance, he already had the battle prowess of a great sage. If Big Brother Tianyang enters the Saint Realm, he might be able to fight a great sage. Qi Yingtian's lips curled into a smile as he spoke. Hearing this, Jin Zhan and the others nodded slightly, but the despair in their hearts didn't lessen by much. After all, there was no telling. Moreover, Tianyang was walking the path of three nascent saints. Even if he received the Dragon Emperor's inheritance, he might not be able to break through. If Tianyang couldn't break through, then they would definitely die. If you ask me, since the Thunder Great Sage is here to deal with, if you say another word, I'll be the first to kill you. Lan Ji couldn't help but speak. In the next moment, he was greeted by Qi Yingtian's extremely cold gaze. Lan Ji immediately shut his mouth. But the atmosphere in the room had also grown tense. If we really can't escape, I can burn my bloodline and help one or two people escape. At this moment, Yun Xianyuan suddenly spoke with an extremely calm expression. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Wasn't Yun Xianyuan Tianyang's servant? Moreover, he wanted to kill Tianyang. Why did it suddenly become like this? Just as Qi Yingtian was about to speak, everyone's hearts suddenly trembled. A figure seemed to have appeared in front of them. It was tall and chaotic, making it impossible to see clearly. However, it was extremely oppressive. The saint path that they had cultivated was trembling slightly. Everyone even had the urge to submit to that figure in their hearts. It was as if that person could make the entire universe worship him. What's going on? This impulse wasn't strong, but it still caused Qi Yingtian and the others' expressions to change drastically. They had never seen this kind of situation before. Lan Ji and Huang Yun almost couldn't help but kneel on the ground and worship. Boom! Suddenly, a loud sound directly interrupted everyone's thoughts. Streaks of spatial fragments flew past their ears, almost brushing past their ears. Spatial fragments. Yun Xuanyuan's expression changed drastically. Could it be that the Thunder Great Sage had killed his way in? However, this was the Dragon God Ancestral Temple. The space was so stable that even the Red Dragon Saint might not be able to break it. How could this Thunder Great Sage kill his way in through the Dragon God Ancestral Land? Immediately, Qi Yingtian and Jin Zhan stared at the spatial black hole as if they were facing a great enemy. They also released all of their true essence. In the next moment, a leg stepped out of the black hole. Then, Two hands pushed against the edge of the space and forcibly expanded the black hole. Then a figure flew out of it. Seeing this, Qi Yingtian, Yun Xinyuan, and the others widened their eyes. Big brother Tianyang? Master? Tianyang. Everyone was in disbelief. The one who tore open the space was actually Tianyang. Yun Xinyuan and Qi Yingtian stared at Tianyang in front of them. Why hadn't they seen each other for half a year? Although they still couldn't sense Tianyang's aura, they vaguely felt that Tianyang had become much more majestic. He seemed to be somewhat similar to the figure that suddenly appeared in their minds. Qi Yingtian shook his head. How is that possible? Previously, it was probably because of the influence of the dragon god ancestral temple. Big brother Tianyang, you're finally out? Seeing that it was Tianyang, Qi Yingtian let down his guard and hurriedly walked up. Tianyang's body trembled, and he flew down. Looking at Jin Zhan and the others who were facing a great enemy, he was slightly stunned. Why are you still here? Damn it! At this moment, an angry roar came from the spatial gate again. Following that, another terrifying lightning spear shot towards him. Great Saint? Tianyang recognized the cultivation of the Great Saint at a glance and exclaimed in surprise. That's right, it's the Great Saint of Thunder from the Xianyuan family. Qi Yingtian hurriedly said, Now that you're out, big brother Tianyang, the dragon god ancestral temple is about to close. At that time, we'll have to face this Great Saint of Thunder. Qi Yingtian was extremely anxious. It could be said that Tianyang was their last straw. Xianyuan family? Tianyang was stunned again, and then a smile appeared on his face. Is that so? That's fine now. Chapter 1300. Killing great saints is like slaughtering dogs. Tianyang smiled faintly. Hearing this, everyone's faces were filled with shock. They were trying to figure out if there was something wrong with their ears. Great saints. In the Xintian Great World, they were definitely at the top of the pyramid. Compared to the few saint emperors, the great saints who truly walked in this world were the most intimidating existences. If the true dragon sacred world had a red dragon saint, they could do whatever they wanted in the spiritual state. What was Tianyang's cultivation base? How dare he say that he could kill great saints like slaughtering dogs? Instantly, everyone thought that they were hallucinating. At this moment, the Thunder Great Saint outside roared again. He condensed a lightning spear and slammed it at the spatial door. At this moment, the dragon god ancestral temple sensed that the last person to receive the inheritance had come to an end. Instantly, an extremely strong repulsive force erupted. Everyone present was kicked out of the dragon god ancestral land. In an instant, everyone appeared outside the spatial door. As for that enormous lightning spear, it just so happened to be heading straight for them. Instantly, Qi Yingtian and Jin Zhan's faces turned pale. Yun Xuanyuan's expression was extremely ugly. A flame was burning in her body. The Thunder Great Saint also noticed the people from the true dragon sacred world and Yun Xianyuan, who suddenly appeared in front of him. He immediately laughed maniacally. Ha ha! I knew that you wouldn't be able to hide for long, even if you were a coward. I'll let you live for half a year. That's enough. Now, let my lightning spear bestow death upon you. Instantly, the vital energy of a great saint erupted. That terrifyingly powerful lightning spear instantly expanded by countless times. Streaks of golden lightning circled above it, as if it was a spear that could destroy the heavens and earth. Just by looking at it, one could feel the fatal pressure from the lightning spear. Instantly, everyone's expression changed. Lan Ji and Huang Yun's faces were filled with despair. Yun Xianyuan, on the other hand, had made up her mind. Bloodline ignition. At this moment, a huge impact directly extinguished the bloodline flame in Yun Xuanyuan's body. Your life is mine. Without my permission, you can't just die like that. Tianyang smiled, then turned his head to look at the lightning spear that seemed to be able to destroy the world. Is this the power of a great sage? Yun Xianyuan, I knew it. You didn't die, so you must have some secrets. Now, it seems like you've abandoned the Xianyuan family and joined the true dragon sacred world. No wonder Holy Son Xinyuan died. It's all because of you. At this moment, the great sage of thunder magic also noticed the determined Yun Xinyuan and sneered. I knew that if we didn't harvest the mystical beauty in body earlier and kill it sooner or later, it would become a problem. Your parents just didn't want to. Now, even in the dungeon, he knows that his daughter is really courting death. The great sage of thunder magic laughed loudly. Hearing this, Yun Xinyuan suddenly raised his head. Could it be that his parents didn't agree to kill him? Do people from the Xinyuan family talk so much nonsense before they die? At this moment, Tianyang chuckled. Dragon tattoos appeared on his right arm. The terrifying true origin of the sage state and the physical strength of the sage state condensed on his right arm. Sage state. I didn't expect that Tian Hao Wuzun, a LV7 trash, to give birth to a bastard who can enter the sage state. The great sage of thunder magic was also stunned. Then he sneered. Unfortunately, a sage is just an ant in front of a great sage. In the next moment, the lightning spear exploded with terrifying speed and charged toward Tianyang. Tianyang, on the other hand, smiled as a terrifying power gathered on his right arm. He threw a punch at the lightning spear. Boom! Streaks of terrifying power erupted from Tianyang's fist. A stream of primal chaos, qi, circulated in Tianyang's right arm, instantly bringing forth an incomparably terrifying power. The forward momentum of the lightning spear also came to a halt in an instant. The Thunder Great Sage's face revealed a hint of surprise. A saint could actually block his thunder spear? Unfortunately, a momentary block won't be of any use. Damn it, you still have to die. The great sage of thunder magic shook his head and said indifferently. In the next moment, boom, a terrifying loud sound was heard. The lightning power that formed the lightning spear instantly exploded. At this moment, the 10,000 feet long lightning spear exploded into a sky full of lightning. This terrifying spear was directly shattered by Tianyang's hand. How is this possible? The great sage of thunder magic's face changed. In the next moment, his face turned extremely ugly. It seems that you have obtained some great saint-level treasure in the ancestral dragon godland. However, don't you know that the treasure is only temporary? Without enough strength to support it, the weak will die. The great sage of thunder magic roared. In the next moment, his body flashed and lightning gathered in his hand, turning into a long spear. Lightning wrapped around the long spear. The spear was like a dragon that charged toward Tianyang. Heavenly punishment, thunder magic. The great sage of thunder magic roared. This spear seemed to want to directly pierce through Tianyang. Tianyang's expression did not change. He stood in place and still only raised his right hand. The chaotic qi in his right arm circulated, and Tianyang also attacked at this moment. His right arm directly grabbed the long spear formed by lightning. You're courting death. Thunder explosion. The great sage of thunder magic snorted coldly. In an instant, lightning exploded on the long spear. However, Tianyang was still as calm as before. The hand that held the long spear did not tremble in the slightest. The lightning bombarded Tianyang's body, which was not very strong, but there was no change at all. The strength of his physical body was as if it was impenetrable by lightning. Compared to the sea of lightning of the sage tribulation, it's really weak. Tianyang shook his head and sighed. He did not know that what he had passed was a weakened version of the sage emperor tribulation. He only thought that it was an ordinary sage tribulation. Now that he found that the attack of the great sage of thunder magic was not even as good as his own sage tribulation, he was naturally disappointed. The so-called great sage, is that all? Arrogant. Seeing this, the great sage of thunder magic's face suddenly revealed a furious expression. You're just a trashy saint who relied on the power of treasures to fight against me. How dare you be so presumptuous? In the next moment, the great sage of thunder magic shot out like a cannonball, and a fist blasted toward Tianyang. This fist shall bestow upon you heavenly punishment. Boom! As if in response to the roar of the great sage of thunder magic, a dull thunder suddenly sounded in the sky. On the other hand, Tianyang raised his brows slightly. His right hand attacked. Tianyang's fist collided with the fist of the great sage of thunder magic. Waves of destructive power bloomed in Tianyang's fist. In an instant, the entire arm of the great sage of thunder magic exploded inch by inch. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The pupils of the great sage of thunder magic also shrank to the extreme at this moment. He hurriedly moved, but found that the space had unknowingly been sealed by Tianyang. And Tianyang's right hand took advantage of the situation. It went through his chest. Chapter 1301. A hand reached out from behind the great sage of thunder magic. At the same time, blood rained down from the sky. However, the strange thing was that Tianyang's hand went through the great sage of thunder magic's heart, but there was not a single drop of blood on his hand. The great sage of thunder magic's pupils shrank to the extreme, and he roared. Thunderstorm! The heavenly punishment thunder magic instantly erupted, and terrifying bolts of lightning instantly condensed and fell from the sky, attacking Tianyang. Tianyang's expression did not change. He retracted his right hand, and a slight smile appeared on his face. Instantly, the body of the dragon emperor erupted. Rolling Dragon's might was instantly released. In an instant, the remaining dragon chi in the ancestral dragon ruins crazily surged out and fiercely collided with the thunderstorm. The great sage of thunder magic also used this opportunity to instantly disappear on the spot and reappear dozens of miles away. There was a large hole in his chest, and from this large hole, one could completely see the scene behind the great sage of thunder magic. The great sage of thunder magic's old face was filled with intense fear. He completely did not understand how Tianyang could be so strong. Cough, 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 cough. The vitality of a great sage was extremely terrifying. Even if there was a large hole in his chest, it was not a fatal injury. Only the destruction of the primordial spirit was the most effective way to kill a great sage. The great sage of thunder magic continuously spat out blood, and his eyes were filled with intense fear. He stared fixedly at Tianyang, who was unharmed under the thunderstorm. You definitely are not that bastard Tianyang. You definitely can't be a great sage. What kind of monster are you? The great sage of thunder magic roared crazily. Even if he had underestimated his opponent, he was still a great sage. His cultivation was extremely high, and he stood at the peak of the world, a peerless great sage. At this moment, Tianyang had easily blocked all of his killing moves, and he had even been heavily injured by Tianyang. Qi Tian and the others also looked at the great sage of thunder magic's chest with horror. When they heard the great sage of thunder magic's roar, they could not help but tremble. Could it be that this person really was not Tianyang? You don't even recognize your master? Tianyang couldn't help but laugh when he saw everyone looking at him in horror. With a slight movement of his finger, Yun Xuanyuan's expression suddenly changed. When the fiend's slave imprint contracted slightly, Yun Xuanyuan could feel the pressure from his primordial spirit. Yun Xuanyuan was completely convinced that the person in front of him was Tianyang. The fiend's slave imprint could only be controlled by the person who placed it. Shit! He ran away. At this moment, Qi Tian had just breathed a sigh of relief when he discovered that the great sage of thunder had disappeared. How fast was a great sage? Previously, when the great sage of thunder magic had spoken to stall for time, it was enough for the great sage of thunder magic to rush out tens of thousands of miles. I'm fine. Tianyang let out a faint smile. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. The Xinyuan family had reacted so quickly that they had reached the ancestral land of the dragon god in an instant. Then, was the true dragon sacred world also attacked by the Xinyuan family? As for Ling Yuhan, she was still in the true dragon sacred world. Since the Xinyuan family had reacted so quickly, he would show them that he was Tianyang. How fast could he kill a great sage? Boom! Just as Tianyang's voice fell, Tianyang's figure instantly charged out. Before he could even blink, he had completely disappeared, Although Tianyang had focused on cultivating his true yuan and physical body for the past half a year, he had not cultivated the vast expanse 9 transformations. Therefore, his cultivation base was still at the peak of the 5th transformation. However, Tianyang's true yuan had leaped from the peak of Wu Zun to the Saint realm. The speed that he had exploded with was not something that Tianyang could compare to. Boom, boom, boom. Tianyang's extreme speed even caused the space to explode violently. As the vast expanse Dao was activated, Tianyang's speed was raised to another level. The power of the Saint Realm primordial spirit was released and locked onto the great sage of thunder magic. Now it had come in handy. What's going on? Hearing the sound of the space exploding behind him, the great sage of thunder magic, who had a hole in his chest, revealed a puzzled expression as he turned his head to look. Instantly, he saw Tianyang approaching him rapidly. How is this possible? The great sage of thunder magic was instantly scared out of his wits. He had already run for 5 seconds, and Tianyang was still able to catch up. Moreover, how did he know where he was running to? However, the great sage of thunder magic did not know that Tianyang was previously a divine monarch. He also did not know that after becoming a divine monarch with 3 divine monarchs, his essence, chi, and spirit complemented each other, causing the power of Tianyang's primordial spirit to be countless times stronger than what a beginner saint should have. It was easy to lock onto the great sage of thunder magic. Damn it! Realizing that the speed that he was so proud of was far from Tianyang's vast expanse 9 transformations, the great sage of thunder magic decided to stand still and gather lightning in his hands. Die! After such a long time, the power of the treasures on Tianyang's body must have been exhausted. The great sage of thunder magic did not believe that Tianyang could really fight against a great sage. Heavenly punishment thunder magic, heavenly punishment fist. The great sage of thunder magic roared as his true yuan gathered crazily. On his fist, the power of the heavenly punishment thunder magic was released. Even a great sage would not be willing to be hit by this fist easily. Tianyang was just a small saint. In front of the heavenly punishment fist, he would definitely die. Die! The power of heavenly punishment. The punishment of heaven and earth. With a punch, it was as if heaven and earth were adding power to the great sage of thunder magic. The strongest thing about the heavenly punishment thunder magic was that it could draw upon the power of heaven and earth. If the great sage of thunder magic was able to draw upon the power of heaven and earth, then even the 2 supreme elders of the Xianyuan family, who were outside the true dragon sacred world, would not dare to face the great sage of thunder magic head-on. At this moment, a black sword appeared in Tianyang's hand. The great sage of thunder magic was also stunned. The surrounding time seemed to have stopped. The space seemed to have frozen as well. After a moment, the great sage of thunder magic recovered from his strange state. His face turned ferocious as he was about to release the heavenly punishment fist. But why? Could he see his own neck? Boom! Then, a terrifying, devouring power exploded. The primordial spirit of the great sage of thunder magic was completely devoured. The great elder of the Xianyuan family, the great sage of thunder magic, had fallen. Tianyang naturally would not let go of the body of the great sage of thunder magic. He also used the heaven-devouring seal to devour it. However, Tianyang's face was still a little pale. Looking behind him, even without the support of true yuan, the heavenly punishment fist was still able to turn the ground into dust. His face could not help but twitch slightly. As expected, a great sage is still strong. Tianyang sighed. If he was hit by the great sage of thunder magic's punch, although he would not die with the origin of chaos and the immortal divine body. However, there was also a possibility that he would be killed by the great sage of thunder magic instead. However, the space-time Tao is indeed terrifying. Tianyang looked at his slightly trembling right hand and smiled bitterly as he put away the great void sword embryo. Chaos gave birth to all things, and all things returned to chaos. Space-time was also created by chaos. The previous sword was the space-time sword that Tianyang had comprehended from the origin of chaos. The stagnation of space-time was not an illusion of the great sage of thunder magic. Instead, Tianyang's sword had displayed the space-time Tao, causing the surrounding space-time to become much slower. After a moment, Tianyang could not hold on and collapsed automatically. In a stagnant time, the great sage of thunder magic was also killed by Tianyang with one sword. This was the first peerless sword technique that Tianyang had created after comprehending the origin of chaos. It was named Chapter 1302. The space-time Tao was mysterious and profound. Even though Tianyang had already grasped a trace of the chaos origin, which was equivalent to grasping all the Taos in the world, he could not immediately grasp the space-time Tao. The space-time blink was the only sword technique that Tianyang had developed in the past 6 months. Of course, it was also the strongest sword technique. Currently, Tianyang was using the chaos origin to unleash the 10,000 mammoth annihilation and the sky firmament sword. The sky firmament sword's talent was the space-time blink. Fortunately, the Thunder Great Sage's physical essence is strong enough. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the strength to continue killing the Xianyuan family after unleashing the space-time blink. Tianyang took a deep breath and muttered to himself. Although the space-time blink was not the strongest, it consumed the most energy apart from the sky firmament sword. Tianyang's understanding of the space-time Tao was not that deep. Forcibly activating the space-time blink consumed a large amount of Tianyang's true yuan and primordial spirit power. Now it's time to go to the True Dragon Sacred World. Thinking that the True Dragon Sacred World might be in danger and that Ling Yuhan might be in danger, Tianyang's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Now that he had entered the Saint Realm, then he would use the Xianyuan family's blood to test his chaos Tao. Whoosh! Tianyang executed the heavenly expanse, 9 transformations, and instantly exploded with extreme speed. A few minutes later, he returned to the ancestral dragon ruins. Because Tianyang had not returned from chasing the Thunder Great Sage, the people of the True Dragon Sacred World and Yun Xianyuan did not dare to act rashly. They all stayed where they were. When they saw Tianyang return, they were overjoyed. "Brother Tianyang, did you kill the Thunder Great Sage?" Qing Tian's eyes were full of stars. In his eyes, Tianyang was like an invincible god of war. Hai Tian, whom he had met in the ancestral dragon ruins, was killed instantly when he encountered Tianyang. The genius that they could only look up to, the sea dragon prince Hai Yuanxiong, could not hold on for long in Tianyang's hands. As for the Xianyuan Holy Sun, the strongest genius below the Saint Realm in the Xiantian Great World, who was recognized as the strongest in the entire ancestral land of the dragon gods besides the demon dragon crown prince, he had also been killed by Tianyang. Now, even the Thunder Great Sage had his heart pierced by Tianyang. Even if he didn't die, he would be crippled. The life force of a supreme saint is extremely tenacious. Even if one has strength that is above that of a supreme saint of thunder, it would not be easy to kill them. At this time, Huang Yun said sourly, because of Tianyang, his younger brother Huang Long could no longer enter the ancestral land of the dragon god. This made Huang Yun unhappy with Tianyang from the beginning. However, Tianyang's strength had always surpassed his. Thus, Huang Yun could only speak sourly. "Kill him." Tianyang nodded slightly. The existence of a supreme saint is indeed very strong. This time, if he hadn't underestimated me and didn't even use half of his strength at the beginning, I wouldn't have been able to be injured so quickly. Tianyang said this sincerely. The Thunder Great Sage's final move, the punishing fist of heaven, could completely defeat Tianyang's sword-breaking 9 desolation in a head-on clash. At that time, Tianyang didn't have the time to use the 10,000 mammoth annihilation and the sky sword. If he hadn't comprehended the Tao of space-time and created the instant of space-time, he would have been severely injured. Even if Tianyang wasn't seriously injured, his battle strength would definitely be reduced. At that time, although Tianyang could still defeat the Thunder Great Sage, he definitely wouldn't be able to kill him. This also made Tianyang realize the strength of a supreme saint, as expected of an existence that stood at the peak of the Xiantian Great World. With this kind of strength, even if he had become a saint at the 3rd level and had far more battle strength than before, he still couldn't underestimate him. Does the Jinlong sacred domain intend to keep this punishing thunder technique? It's useless for me to keep it, Tianyang said. He still had a sense of propriety when it came to spoils of war. Unless it was someone like the Xianyuan saint who really couldn't control it, Tianyang would definitely keep the other party's dimensional bag. Now, the Thunder Great Sage's dimensional bag had fallen into Tianyang's hands. Looking at the dimensional bag in Tianyang's hand that was still emitting the aura of the Thunder Great Sage, Huang Yun immediately swallowed the words he wanted to say. He had even taken the other party's inheritance. How could he not kill him? The Jinlong sacred domain doesn't cultivate the Thunder Dragon race. Moreover, the Jinlong sacred domain can't afford to keep it now. Qi Yingtian smiled bitterly. If the Jinlong sacred domain could keep it, they would definitely do so. For a loner like Tianyang, a high-level cultivation technique that wasn't suitable for cultivation was useless. However, the Jinlong sacred domain was a huge force. Even if they didn't have it now, they might have it in the future. Keeping the punishing thunder technique that had made the Thunder Great Sage famous would only be beneficial. However, the Jinlong sacred domain didn't have the financial resources to buy it from Tianyang. All right, Tianyang nodded his head slightly and kept the dimensional bag in the Vientiane Sky ruins. Then he looked at Qi Yingtian. Qi Yingtian, can you contact the Jinlong sacred domain? Hearing this, Qi Yingtian smiled bitterly. I can't contact them. Even if I use the bloodline resonance, I can't contact them. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. His expression gradually froze. Then, a terrifying massacre domain instantly spread out. Boom! Jin Zhan and the others instantly fell as if they had fallen into the yellow springs of the underworld. They were filled with a chilling and terrifying aura. Yin Xuanyuan's expression changed drastically. She had obtained the Dragon King's inheritance that was good at hiding. She had thought that even if Tianyang entered the Sage Realm, he wouldn't be able to find her. But now, in the Massacre Domain, Yin Xianyuan felt as if she had been stripped naked. Waves of murderous intent seeped into her body. Tianyang could kill her with just a thought, even without the demon's slave mark. Very good, Xianyuan family. Very good, Tianyang said calmly. But the murderous intent in his eyes had spread to the extreme. Wait a minute. Seeing that Tianyang's murderous intent was about to destroy the entire ancestral dragon ruins, Jin Zhan hurriedly said, Qi Yingtian can't be contacted. It's not just because the Red Dragon Saint is severely injured. There's another possibility. The Red Dragon Saint has entered the Jinlong Sacred Domain and activated the final defense of the Jinlong Sacred Domain. Once it's activated, the Jinlong Sacred Domain will be completely sealed. No matter how strong Qi Yingtian's bloodline is, he won't be able to break through the sealed Jinlong Sacred Domain. So, we won't be able to contact the Red Dragon Saint. Jin Zhan said hurriedly. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. The coldness in the depths of his eyes gradually melted, but his murderous intent skyrocketed. Even the second possibility could force the Red Dragon Saint to activate the final defense of the Jinlong Sacred Domain and completely seal it. This showed how far the Xianyuan family had gone. The Xianyuan family must be destroyed, Tianyang shouted. In the next moment, he waved his hand. Enter my small world. In the next moment, Yun Xianyuan and the others were sucked into the Vientiane Sky ruins. Then, Tianyang raised his head and activated his undying eyes. His gaze seemed to be able to see through everything and shoot straight to the Jinlong Sacred Domain. Boom! With a loud bang, Tianyang's figure disappeared completely. Murderous intent bloomed. Chapter 1303. Shieling State, True Dragon, Sacred World. The two supreme elders of a Xianyuan family had been waiting outside the True Dragon Sacred World for half a year. For great saints, half a year was just the blink of an eye. The two supreme elders had cultivated for much longer than the Thunder Great Saint. 2 months ago, when they realized that the barrier of the True Dragon Sacred World couldn't be broken, the two supreme elders sat down outside the True Dragon Sacred World calmly. No matter what, the true dragon sacred domain would not be able to maintain this barrier forever. With the age of a great saint, would it be a problem for them to kill the true dragon sacred world? I wonder how the Thunder Great Saint is doing. Suddenly, one of the elders chuckled and said, "The seniors and juniors of the true dragon sacred world are all the same. The true dragon sacred world has opened the barrier and is hiding. The ancestral dragon godland is also hiding like a turtle. However, half a year has passed. The ancestral dragon god temple should be closed. When the time comes, the Thunder Great Saint will join us and attack. My sword hasn't tasted blood for a long time." One of the elders smiled. Hearing this, the other elder nodded slightly. In the past half a year, they had studied the barrier of the true dragon sacred world. They realized that as time passed, the strength of the barrier was getting weaker. However, under the control of the Red Dragon Saint, the barrier was still in a state where the two great saints couldn't break it. But what was the use of that? The array could protect the entire true dragon sacred world. It must have consumed a lot of energy. After half a year, it was doubtful whether the array could last another half a year. When the Thunder Great Saint finished killing and came here, the true dragon sacred world would be broken. When that time came, the Xianyuan family would announce to the world that the Xianyuan family was the true overlord of the world, within the true dragon sacred world. Damn the Xianyuan family. The Red Dragon Saint, who had recovered 40% of his strength, looked through the array and stared at the two supreme elders of the Xianyuan family, who were smiling. His fist trembled. He even had the urge to rush out and fight the two supreme elders. Red Dragon Saint, the Xianyuan family's actions have destroyed the balance of the continent. Are the supreme forces of the continent, like the Void Mountain, just going to watch? At that moment, the Ocean Dragon Saint couldn't help but ask. Back when the Red Dragon Sage helped Tianyang deal with the Snow Fox clan, he was wary of this and that. In the end, he did not deal much damage to the Snow Fox clan. As for the Xianyuan family, it was obvious that they were here to destroy the true dragon sacred world. Hearing this, the Red Dragon Sage shook his head. It's useless. Although our true dragon sacred world has been passed down since ancient times, compared to the Xianyuan family, who is in charge of the Central Divine Prefecture, we are far inferior. Although the Void Mountain is fair, it is only fair on the level of the entire continent. There might be people from a Xianyuan family among them. Furthermore, the Void Mountain hasn't been peaceful recently. As for the other forces, they are all eyeing the Xianyuan family and waiting to destroy us. Then, they'll rush out and devour the true dragon sacred world together with the Xianyuan family. The Crimson Dragon Sage sighed. The true dragon sacred domain had a long history, but had only risen to prominence in the short 10 million years after the ancestral dragon godland had been sealed. At that time, the dragon race had split, and a large amount of new blood had poured into the true dragon sacred world. The Crimson Dragon race had been one of them. This had allowed the true dragon sacred world to grow stronger. In terms of heritage, it was not at the same level as the Xianyuan family, which had been passed down since ancient times. Is there no chance? Hearing this, the Earth Dragon Sage's face showed a trace of unwillingness. At this moment, the Crimson Dragon Sage suddenly spoke. Earth Dragon Sage, have you been in charge of transferring the younger generation of the true dragon sacred world and the various inheritances? Yes, most of them are hidden in the 100,000 mountains, while a small part of them have gone through Flowing Sky City to various strongholds outside the true dragon sacred world. That's good. Hearing this, the Crimson Dragon Sage smiled. This way, the true dragon sacred world will not be destroyed. The true dragon sacred world has never been destroyed. The Crimson Dragon Sage laughed. At this moment, the Sea Dragon Sage and the Earth Dragon Sage's faces changed drastically. Crimson Dragon Sage, could it be that you? Right now, I've recovered 40% of my injuries, 80% of my true yuan, and the power of my primordial spirit is at its peak. If I go all out, so what if these two great saints are stronger than me? Do you think they can kill me? The Crimson Dragon Sage laughed, and in the next moment, a huge seal appeared in his hand. Above the seal, streaks of terrifying dragon power spiraled, and an extremely pure dragon race bloodline was sleeping within. That dragon power was at the Saint Emperor realm. Dragon Emperor's seal. Seeing this, the Earth Dragon Sage and the Sea Dragon Sage's faces changed drastically. Crimson Dragon Sage, you want to use the Dragon Emperor's seal? If I don't use it now, when should I? The Crimson Dragon Sage chuckled and asked in return. In the next moment, streaks of terrifying auras erupted from the Crimson Dragon Sage's body. The entire Crimson Dragon City shook violently because of this. The Scarlet Dragon Holy's loose robes flapped loudly as the strong winds blew. Streaks of dragon flame burned beneath the Crimson Dragon Sage's feet. The Xinyuan family wants to devour the true dragon sacred domain. Let's see if this old dog's teeth are enough to chew through the bones of the true dragon sacred domain. In the next moment, the Crimson Dragon Sage soared into the sky and stepped out of the true dragon sacred domain. The two great elders of the Xinyuan family who were waiting outside also noticed the changes in the surrounding auras. Their eyes narrowed slightly, and they sneered. Crimson Dragon Sage, you finally couldn't hold back and came out to die? The Crimson Dragon Sage's name had spread throughout the world. Although they were great elders of the Xinyuan family, they had never killed a great saint before. Now that they had the chance to kill the Crimson Dragon Sage, who had been famous for a long time, they were extremely excited. Die. The Crimson Dragon Sage smiled slightly, and his entire body burned with dragon flame. The Dragon Emperor seal in his hand released streaks of terrifying flames. I'm here to grant you death. In the next moment, the Crimson Dragon Sage roared and transformed into his true form, a ferocious giant dragon that was tens of thousands of feet long. He roared and charged out. Dragon flame burned around him as if the Dragon King of Destruction had arrived. Dragon Emperor's seal. Has the Crimson Dragon Sage gone mad? The faces of the two supreme elders of the Xinyuan family were also filled with shock as they spoke in disbelief. The Dragon Emperor seal was the strongest treasure in the true dragon's sacred domain, and it was also the final trump card. The Crimson Dragon Sage had actually taken it out? Could it be that this was the final battle? Since the Dragon Emperor seal has appeared. At this moment, the great elder of the Xinyuan family suddenly chuckled and flicked his finger. Heaven Dragon Sage, it's time for you to take action. In the next moment, the other great elder also took on the Crimson Dragon Sage's attack. Puffed. The other great elder of the Xinyuan family spat out a mouthful of blood. He had been injured by the claw. However, there was a strange smile on his face. What? The Crimson Dragon Sage's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly turned his head to look. At this moment, the Earth Dragon Sage's voice rang in his mind. Heaven Dragon Sage, what are you doing? You're not allowed to enter this place. Wait a minute. What are you doing to the array core? Stop. Boom. A loud sound rang out. Chapter 1304. Boom. A terrifying sound, like a sonata of death, instantly reverberated through the entire true dragon sacred world and the entire West Spirit State. In an instant, the Earth Dragon Saint and Sea Dragon Saint's expressions were extremely unsightly. Crimson Dragon City, Sky Dragon City, Sea Dragon City, and the rest of the Dragon Clan citizens were also extremely terrified. Ever since the two great sages from the Xinyuan family had attacked the true dragon's sacred world, the dragon tribe had been living in fear. Now that the barrier had been destroyed, their fear turned into fear. Sky Dragon Saint, what are you doing? At this moment, the Earth Dragon Saint and Sea Dragon Saint roared and charged toward Sky Dragon Saint, who had appeared on top of the Crimson Dragon Pagoda. However, at this moment, Tian Longsheng was emitting a unique aura. His lips curled into a cold sneer as he waved his hand. Instantly, the Earth Dragon Saint and Sea Dragon Saint spat out blood and were sent flying. This is a great sage. Half-step great sage. At that moment, the Earth Dragon Saint also sensed the Heaven Dragon Saint's current cultivation and revealed a shocked expression. Ever since Tianyang had become a great sage and suppressed Sky Dragon Saint, no one had seen Sky Dragon Saint. Even the two great sages from the Xinyuan family had not seen him. Originally, The dragons thought that the heavenly dragon saint had found a secluded place to cultivate in seclusion, but now it seemed that, however, now that they had seen him, Sky Dragon Saint was in cahoots with the Xianyuan family. No, this half-step great sage's aura is weak. He's not a normal half-step great sage. At this moment, the Sea Dragon Saint spat out a mouthful of blood and stared at Sky Dragon Saint. That's right, Sky Dragon Saint smirked. I'm not a true half-step great sage now. But Sky Dragon Saint looked around at the 10 saints of the true dragon sacred world. It's not a problem to defeat all of you. What a joke. At this moment, the Golden Dragon Tribe's patriarch snorted and unleashed the power of a pinnacle saint. Of the 8 saints here, for our pinnacle saints, the rest aren't beginner-level saints either. Let's not talk about the fact that you're just a half-step great sage. Even if you're a real half-step great sage, so what? The Golden Dragon Patriarch snorted coldly. In front of me, the 8 dragons, you will definitely die. In the next moment, the Golden Dragon Patriarch roared and charged toward the Heavenly Dragon Saint. At the same time, the Earth Dragon Saint, Sea Dragon Saint, and the other Dragon Saints also activated their dragon power and unleashed their most powerful attacks. At this moment, the Heaven Dragon Saint let out a strange smile. Indeed, even if I truly step into the half-step Great Sage realm, I may not be a match for you. But who said that I'm going to use my own strength to fight you now? Tian Long, Sheng laughed out loud. In the next moment, the dragon force in his hand exploded and turned into a huge talisman. The talisman seemed to contain the true power of a great sage. Xianyuan Divine Sword Talisman. The Heavenly Dragon Saint roared. Instantly, the giant talisman in his hand burned and disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by an incomparably terrifying giant sword. What? Seeing this, the expressions of Patriarch Golden Dragon and the other dragons changed drastically. You actually have a Supreme Sage Talisman. However, the giant sword had already slashed toward the 8 dragon saints, including the Golden Dragon Patriarch, the Sea Dragon Saint, the Earth Dragon Saint, and the other Peak Saints. The 8 dragon saints were all severely injured by the sword. Blood spurted from their mouths as they crashed through the walls of the Crimson Dragon Tower and flew out. It's a pity that I only have one Supreme Sage Talisman. Otherwise, killing all of you would be a piece of cake. Seeing this, the Heavenly Dragon Saint's face was filled with regret. If not for the Supreme Sage Talisman being difficult to make, even with the help of the 2 Xianyuan family great sages outside, he would not have been able to easily make 2 Supreme Sage Talismans. Otherwise, with 2 Xianyuan Divine Sword Talismans, the 8 dragon saints would all die. Seeing this, the Crimson Dragon Saint roared and unleashed the Tao of Space. Space Fold. As a great sage, the Crimson Dragon Saint was most proficient in the Tao of Fire and the Tao of Space. However, the space fold that had always been successful was blocked at this moment. Crimson Dragon Saint, your opponent is us. The 2 great sages of the Xianyuan family chuckled. When they joined forces, their aura seemed to be stronger. You are courting death. The Crimson Dragon Saint roared and charged at the 2 great sages of the Xianyuan family with the Dragon Emperor seal in his hand. The Crimson Dragon Saint had the Dragon Emperor seal in his hand and could suppress all existences below the Saint Emperor level. However, the 2 great sages of the Xianyuan family seemed to know about the existence of the Dragon Emperor seal in the true dragon sacred domain. Like a slippery loach, they only cared about tangling with the Crimson Dragon Saint. Although they were hit by the Dragon Emperor seal a few times, they did not suffer any serious injuries. Suddenly, the Crimson Dragon Saint felt like he was stuck in mud and could not escape. How did they know? Of course, it was the Heavenly Dragon Saint. Why? Why are you doing this? The Earth Dragon Saint roared as he struggled to support his body that was severely injured by the Xianyuan Divine Sword Talismans. Have you forgotten who gave you the resources, who gave you the cultivation techniques, and who helped you grow? Why are you siding with the evildoers and helping the Xianyuan family attack the true dragon's sacred domain? If the Heavenly Dragon Saint had not suddenly appeared and destroyed the array, The Crimson Dragon Saint could have severely injured the two great sages with the Dragon Emperor seal and saved the true dragon's sacred domain. However, the Heavenly Dragon Saint's sudden appearance had completely ruined everyone's plan. The Crimson Dragon Saint could not unleash the power of the Dragon Emperor seal. Oh, well said. Indeed, it was the true dragon's sacred domain that helped me since I was young. However, in recent years, what happened after Tianyang appeared? Xinyuan Kong of the Xinyuan family, whom I had to lower myself to invite, was killed by Tianyang. My descendant, by Pingyu, the strongest genius of the Heavenly Dragon clan, was killed by Tianyang. As for me, as the oldest sage in the true dragon's sacred domain, I was suppressed by that little bastard Tianyang. It's all because of Tianyang. Instead of causing trouble for me, you should have killed that little bastard Tianyang immediately to appease my anger. Let me kill that little bastard Tianyang's Taoist partner first. That would have slowed me down. The Heavenly Dragon Saint's face revealed a perverted smile. If I rape her and kill her, then rape her and kill her again, Tianyang will definitely be furious. Ah, serves him right. Tianyang deserves it. The Heavenly Dragon Saint laughed and instantly attacked the City Lord's mansion where Ling Yuhan was. Stop! The Crimson Dragon Saint roared. Tianyang had asked him to protect Ling Yuhan. How could he let Ling Yuhan get hurt before Tianyang returned? Crimson Dragon Saint, with us here, you still want to meddle in other people's business? The two great sages of the Xinyuan family laughed and punched out, forcing the Crimson Dragon Saint to turn around and attack. A look of despair appeared on Ling Yuhan's face. In an instant, she activated the 9 Nether Frosty art. Even if she had to kill herself, she could not fall into the hands of the Heavenly Dragon Saint. I didn't expect to see that old bastard farting the moment I returned. How annoying. At this moment, a cold voice that seemed to come from the depths of hell suddenly rang out in the sky of the true dragon sacred domain. The Heavenly Dragon Saint was stunned. This voice, at this moment, a sword that was filled with killing intent descended from the sky. 5 Sage Daos fused, 10,000 destruction. Boom! The Heavenly Dragon Saint did not even have time to block it. Under the accumulation of boundless killing intent, a terrifying sword light bloomed. Chapter 1305. Boom! As the sword slashed down, it was as if a god had descended from the heavens, bringing with it a terrifying might that could tear the heavens apart. Blood spurted out as his flesh exploded. Even though Heavenly Dragon Sage had broken through to the half-step Great Sage realm with the help of the Xinyuan family, he could not block Tianyang's sword. Who is it? Earth Dragon Sage, Sea Dragon Sage, and the other Dragon Sages were stunned. Why was there someone helping the true dragon's sacred world now? At this moment, a cloud of smoke dispersed in the distance. Heavenly Dragon Sage's terrified soul appeared in the cloud of smoke. Luckily, the Xinyuan family gave me a talisman to save my life. Otherwise, I would have died for sure. Heavenly Dragon Sage roared. As the 10,000 destruction sword was about to tear his body apart, Heavenly Dragon Sage's instinct as a dragon sage sensed a terrifying threat approaching. Without hesitation, he immediately used the talisman to save his primordial spirit. However, Tianyang looked indifferent as he looked down at the true dragon, sacred world. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Heavenly Dragon Sage. It's a pity that I didn't kill you back then. Tianyang stood in the air and said indifferently, as if he was above the heavens and earth. Tianyang had the power of an origin sage back then. If he had used some tricks, it would not have been a problem for him to kill the old Heavenly Dragon Sage. However, Tianyang did not kill him immediately out of respect for the Red Dragon Sage. Now, Heavenly Dragon Sage had become a traitor and put the true dragon's sacred world in danger. Heavens! Son! At this moment, Heavenly Dragon Sage discovered the source of the sword in the sky. The figure of a young man was like a brand, firmly imprinted in his heart. No matter how he thought about it, he would never have thought that the person who could kill him would be Tianyang. How is this possible? How is this possible? How can you be so powerful? Heavenly Dragon Sage roared crazily as he went crazy. He had betrayed the true dragon's sacred world and knelt down to the Xianyuan family to beg for an opportunity. Wasn't it so that he could become stronger one day and kill Tianyang with his own hands? In the end, he had become stronger, but he still couldn't kill Tianyang. Instead, he was killed by Tianyang with a single slash. A life-saving talisman? The Xianyuan family is really generous. They can even give such a thing to a trash. Tianyang said indifferently. At this moment, a stream of light flashed by. Ling Yuhan was so excited that she threw herself into Tianyang's arms. "Master, you're finally back." Ling Yuhan's voice sounded like she was about to cry, but more than that, she was crying tears of joy. Just a few minutes ago, Ling Yuhan was on the verge of committing suicide. If Tianyang had not appeared in time, Ling Yuhan would have been a corpse by now. Thinking of Tianyang's grief after her suicide, Ling Yuhan felt a burst of fear and hugged Tianyang even more tightly. "I'm back." When facing enemies, Tianyang was a decisive and arrogant sword emperor. However, in front of Ling Yuhan, Tianyang was just a master and a cultivation partner. When talking to Ling Yuhan, Tianyang's expression softened. "Damn it, the Heavenly Dragon Sage is such a trash. He didn't even succeed." Seeing this, the two great sages of the Xianyuan family were furious. Previously, the situation was great. As long as the Heavenly Dragon Sage killed the other Dragon Sages, the true Dragon's sacred domain would have no power to resist. After all, even if the Dragon Emperor seal was the most precious treasure of the true Dragon's sacred domain, there was a time limit. Once the time was up, the Red Dragon Sage would return to his original form. At that time, the two Supreme Elders could kill the Red Dragon Sage easily. Therefore, the two Supreme Elders of the Xianyuan family allowed the Heavenly Dragon Sage to vent his anger on Ling Yuhan. In the end, the boat was about to reach the shore, but it capsized in the gutter. How could the two great sages not be angry? At this moment, the Red Dragon Sage's eyes narrowed. Seizing the opportunity, a terrifying dragon flame shot out. It hit one of the great sages. Damn it, that great sage spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was filled with anger as he quickly adjusted his breathing. In the next moment, the two great sages of the Xianyuan family looked at each other and nodded at the same time. "If that's the case, then we can only kill you first." Now that the Heavenly Dragon Sage's plan had been broken, they could only rely on the strength of the two great sages to forcefully destroy the true dragon's sacred domain. In the next moment, the two great sages of the Xianyuan family tore open their robes at the same time, revealing the runes on their chests. The Xianyuan family's blood soul, god-destroying curse. Seeing this, the Red Dragon Sage's eyes narrowed in disbelief. The blood soul, god-destroying curse overdraft the power of one's soul to multiply one's strength. This was a blood curse that had a terrifying price to pay. As long as we kill you within 6 hours, your primordial spirit will be perfectly restored. The two great sages of the Xianyuan family revealed a ferocious expression. In the next moment, the blood soul, god-destroying curse bloomed with rays of blood-red light. At the center of their brows, a blood-red flame also appeared. In an instant, their strength skyrocketed. With a punch, they actually forced the Red Dragon Sage to retreat. "Yuhan, come in first." Seeing this, Tianyang's face darkened as he spoke. At the same time, he released Qi Yingtian, Yun Xianyuan, and the others. All right. Although Ling Yuhan was curious as to why Tianyang had returned with a woman, he didn't ask any questions at such a critical juncture. He nodded his head and immediately entered the Vientiane Sky ruins. She didn't recognize the Vientiane Sky ruins, but Ling Yuhan was very familiar with the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden. Tianyang wasn't worried that Ling Yuhan wouldn't be able to adapt after entering. That's the first and second Supreme Elders, the Blood Soul Supreme Sage and the Blood Butcher Supreme Sage. At this moment, Yin Xuanyuan's eyes narrowed as he looked at the two great elders of the Xianyuan family who had used the Blood Soul God-destroying curse to suppress the Red Dragon Sage. After Yun Xianyuan spoke, The two great elders of the Xianyuan family, the Blood Soul Supreme Sage and the Blood Butcher Supreme Sage, were stunned as they looked at Yin Xianyuan. Then, their faces darkened to the extreme. Yin Xianyuan, I didn't expect you to betray the Xianyuan family. Oomph. Xianyuan Patian and Xianyuan Qing have nothing to say in the dungeon. The second Supreme Elder, the Blood Butcher Supreme Sage, snorted. Don't worry, your parents will be reunited with you soon. In the next moment, the Blood Butcher Supreme Sage blasted a ray of blood-red light at Yun Xianyuan. Ha! Tianyang stretched out his hand and activated the 8th refinement of the 9 refined dragon body, the body of the Dragon Emperor. His terrifying physical strength shattered the ray of blood-red light into pieces. At the same time, Tianyang waved his hand and killed the heavenly dragon sage who was trying to escape. Give me the information of the 2 supreme sages. Then you could take refuge in the Vientiane Sky Market, Tianyang said. Although the strongest enemy in the true dragon sacred world had been restrained, it was still considered safe. However, Yin Xianyuan was the Xianyuan Saintess. She might be killed by the dragon sage of the true dragon sacred world who knew the truth. Ah, okay. Yin Xianyuan was stunned. Then, he nodded his head silently and transmitted the information in his mind to Tianyang through the demon slave imprint. After Tianyang received the message, a smile appeared on his face as he took Xianyuan Yin in. In the next moment, the mid-level saint-grade martial soul, heavenly sword, appeared. Martial soul talent, devour heaven. In an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the mountains and rivers, and endless energy surged into Tianyang's body like a boundless ocean. Heavenly Sun's cultivation also instantly skyrocketed. He had become a mid-level saint. Old fogey of the Xianyuan family, get ready. Tianyang activated the vast expanse 9 transformations and appeared in front of the Blood Butcher Supreme Sage. The great Void Sword embryo appeared and slashed out. Sword breaking 9 desolates. Are you going to die? Boom. Chapter 1306. Boom. A terrifying beam of sword light slashed at Supreme Sage Bloodslayer, as if it wanted to tear apart heaven and earth. Supreme Sage Bloodslayer was still shocked that his attack had been destroyed by a junior like Tianyang. Now that he was attacked by Tianyang, even if he instinctively dodged, a terrifying wound was left on his arm. His left arm was so deep that bone could be seen and blood flowed endlessly. Hiss! Supreme Sage Shiwedu let out a low roar. His figure flashed, and he quickly retreated dozens of miles. Looking at the wound on his arm, he was stunned for a moment before his expression turned savage. How dare you injure me? Supreme Sage Bloodslayer had always been the one to injure others, but no one dared to hurt him. The great sage Shiwedu had earned his reputation by relying on his own strength. Back then, tens of millions of lives had died by his sword. He'd even slaughtered an entire mortal kingdom to refine his blood sword. Even so, he hadn't been injured at all. But now, Supreme Sage Bloodslayer had been injured by Tianyang. Who do you think you are? Tianyang, on the other hand, smiled disdainfully. He didn't care about Supreme Saint Shiwedu at all. According to the information that Yin Xianyuan had given him, the Xianyuan family's first Supreme Elder was Supreme Sage Bloodsoul, whose cultivation was similar to the Crimson Dragon Sages. The second Supreme Elder of the Xianyuan family, Supreme Sage Bloodslayer, was slightly weaker. He wasn't much stronger than a Supreme Sage of the Thunder Dao. However, it seems that there's still some error in the information. If 2 Supreme Elders and a First Elder are both Supreme Sages, then the Patriarch of the Xianyuan family must be a Supreme Sage as well. Adding in other possible trump cards, this Xianyuan family is really troublesome. Tianyang calculated in his mind, and his expression turned grave. If he hadn't walked the path of becoming a saint of the 3 Yuan and hadn't comprehended the origin of chaos, it would have been impossible for him to fight a Supreme Sage as soon as he stepped into the saint realm. But he'd killed the Xianyuan family's holy son. Perhaps after killing him, the Xianyuan family would immediately execute Tian Hao, who was locked up in the Xianyuan family's dungeon. If that was the case, he would have committed a grave sin. No matter what, Tianyang had inherited this body. All the karma of this body would be borne by him. A great battle is coming, and you still dare to be distracted? At this moment, a furious roar came from the front. The blood sword flashed and slashed out. The sword seemed to tear open a river of blood into space. It carried an incomparably terrifying smell of blood and murderous intent as it surged towards Tianyang. Legend has it that a saint's domain is formed naturally. It seems that the domain of a great saint is much stronger than an ordinary domain. Tianyang reacted instantly. With a cold snort, the great void sword embryo in his hand shone with boundless sword light and slashed out fiercely. Boom! The fusion of the four holy Daos, 10,000 mammoths, annihilation. The majestic sword light instantly pierced through the blood river from bottom to top. Tianyang immediately used the boundless 9 changes and closed in on Supreme Saint Shuetu in a flash. What? Supreme Saint Shuetu did not expect his massacre domain to be broken by Tianyang so quickly. Without thinking, he immediately exploded with the aura of a great saint. The aura of a great saint, especially one like Supreme Saint Shuetu, had a slight effect on Tianyang. He was about to attack, but Tianyang's reaction was not slow. With a thought, the domain was formed naturally. Saint Sword Domain. The Saint Realm domain was formed naturally with the Saint Path as its foundation. Tianyang cultivated the chaos origin. Although he could immediately use other great Daos, the strongest Saint Path was naturally the Saint Realm Sword Dao. In an instant, the terrifying power of the Saint Realm Sword Dao filled a 10-mile radius around Tianyang. Although it was not as terrifying as Supreme Saint Shuetu's Blood River, that sharpness, which seemed to be able to tear the sky apart, still injured Supreme Saint Shuetu. The endless power of the sword Dao wreaked havoc. Supreme Saint Shuetu's body suddenly appeared with sword wounds. Supreme Saint Shuetu's expression was completely ugly. You're asking for it. In the next moment, the blood sword in Supreme Saint Shuetu's hand turned into a huge blood axe and chopped down at Tianyang with great force. This sudden change shocked Tianyang, but Tianyang's reaction was not slow. He activated the body of the Dragon Emperor, and the great void sword embryo in his hand immediately blocked. Bang! There was the sound of metal clashing. Tianyang stood where he was, motionless. Supreme Saint Shuetu, on the other hand, was sent flying dozens of meters by the force of the sword block. This sword. Supreme Saint Shuetu looked at the great void sword embryo in Tianyang's hand in disbelief. The blood sword had turned into a blood axe. Even Supreme Saint Shuetu would have been injured if he had been caught off guard. Even if Tianyang had reacted, this black sword, which was only a divine weapon, should have shattered. However, under such a terrifying attack, not only did the great void sword embryo not shatter, but even Tianyang did not move at all. Tianyang was also stunned. When he had just attacked, he suddenly remembered that the great void sword embryo was only a divine weapon. It was almost impossible for it to block the power of a supreme saint. In the end, not only did the great void sword embryo block it, but also did not seem to have a single scratch on it. Could it be that this great void sword embryo, even if it's just an embryo, has a complete sturdiness? Tianyang was stunned. At this time, Supreme Saint Shuetu, who was angry out of humiliation, had already rushed forward. He roared and chopped down with the blood axe in his hand. Heavenly river of blood. The massacre domain had reappeared. The terrifying river of blood condensed the vital essence and killing intent of a supreme saint as it rushed toward Tianyang. Not only did it contain Supreme Saint Shuetu's terrifying power as a supreme saint, but it also contained the impact of the massacre domain on the primordial spirit. However, seeing this, Tianyang only smiled slightly. Massacre domain? It was most likely formed after cultivating the path of slaughter and entering the saint realm. Tianyang did not cultivate the path of slaughter. Therefore, even if he entered the saint realm, he would not be able to form the massacre domain immediately. However, Tianyang had it when he was in the Tao fire realm. No matter how strong you were, how could you compete with someone who had cultivated countless times earlier than you in terms of domain? Boom! In an instant, the Saint Realm sword domain under Tianyang's feet turned into a blood sea. The moment the bloody river rushed into the upper Azura blood sea, it lost all its power and turned into a pool of stagnant water. In the next moment, Tianyang's body shook. The great void sword embryo condensed vital essence and slashed out. Samsara of life and death. Boom! This terrifying axe attack collided with the samsara of life and death. In the end, both dissipated. Supreme Saint Shiwatu was stunned. You have a massacre domain too? Previously, he was very surprised that Tianyang had condensed the Saint Realm sword domain. Tianyang must have entered the Saint Realm not long ago, but he had condensed his own Saint Realm. But now, he actually had two domains. You dare to be distracted on the battlefield? At this moment, Tianyang chuckled and suddenly disappeared. Supreme Saint Shiwatu immediately felt a great sense of danger. He was about to release the power of his primordial spirit to find traces of Tianyang. However, he felt his primordial spirit freeze. Chapter 13:07. Blood splattered everywhere as chunks of flesh exploded. Supreme Sage Shiwatu's face contorted. In the next moment, he forcefully channeled his inner yuan and flashed away. He was 100 miles away. Looking at his pierced chest, his expression was hideous. He forcefully channeled his inner yuan to repair the wound. For someone of Supreme Sage Shiwatu's level, a sword through his chest was not a big deal. But Tianyang's Saint Realm Sword Dao power was wreaking havoc in his body. It forcefully prevented Supreme Sage Shiwatu's power from healing his wound and was constantly destroying his vitality. What kind of demonic technique was that? Supreme Sage Shiwatu stared at Tianyang. If his primordial spirit had not been frozen for a moment, how could he have been pierced through by Tianyang, a piece of trash who had just entered the Saint Realm? Previously, Tianyang must have used some method, a way to kill you. Tianyang smiled faintly. The Ice Soul secret technique that he had obtained from the Northern Frost Dragon King was extraordinarily useful. With the power of Tianyang's Saint Realm primordial spirit, he was caught off guard. Almost every move he made was accurate. Even a powerhouse like Supreme Sage Shiwatu was frozen by the Ice Soul secret technique for a moment. Not going to speak? Supreme Sage Shiwatu's expression instantly turned ugly. If you don't speak, I'll search your soul and force you to speak. In the next moment, Supreme Sage Shiwatu's figure disappeared on the spot. At the same time, streaks of sharp sword light shot toward Tianyang. Tianyang's expression did not change. The great void, sword embryo in his hand released streaks of Xinguang, directly shattering the countless streaks of sword light. At the same time, his figure flashed and suddenly appeared in front of Supreme Sage Shiwatu. This guy can see through my space escape technique. Supreme Sage Shiwatu's expression changed drastically. Without any hesitation, he punched out. I'm known for my physical strength. Even if it's a sword technique, it's just one of my endless divine abilities. You little bastard, just wait to be killed by my blood fist. Supreme Sage Shiwatu roared. His right fist seemed to have turned into a stream of blood as he viciously punched toward Tianyang. Blood fist. A terrifying bloody fist instantly exploded and blasted toward Tianyang. Supreme Sage Shiwatu was suddenly stunned. Why were there huge dragons in front of him? In the next moment, a Dragon King's roar. Unrivaled dragon fist. Boom! The blood and the dragon collided fiercely as the fists of the Heavenly Sun and Great Saint Shiwatu also collided. Blood Shiwatu's fist, Supreme Sage Shiwatu's. Of a Saint Su of the Saint of Shu, of Supreme Sage Shiwatu. Supreme Sage Shiwatu let out a furious roar as his physical strength erupted. However, in the next moment, another furious roar was heard. His boundless physical strength crushed Supreme Sage Shiwatu's fist as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. At the same time, Supreme Sage Shuetu was sent flying. How is this possible? Seeing this, Great Sage Bloodslaughter was completely stunned. He had clashed head-on with Heavenly Sun, but he had actually been sent flying? In the next moment, Tianyang's body suddenly flashed. The Great Void Sword Embryo in his hand suddenly released a terrifying light. The Heaven's Expanse 9 Changes was activated to the extreme. A stream of chaotic chi was integrated into the Great Void Sword Embryo. 9 Saints Path, 10,000 Destruction. Boom! A sword that seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth was released from the Great Void Sword Embryo. It was like the roar of a primordial beast or the fury of a god. The 9 Saints Path, coupled with the terrifying power of chaotic chi and the characteristic of 3 elements to become a saint, complementing each other. Tianyang's sword had the power to kill a supreme sage. The sword seemed to have frozen the entire world. Supreme Sage Shuetu and Supreme Sage Shuetu, who were in the midst of a bloody battle, were stunned. They stopped freezing at the same time and looked to the side in shock. Supreme Sage Shuetu was also stunned. In the next moment, he went completely crazy. A fatal threat came from the sword light and attacked Supreme Sage Shuetu's soul. How is this possible? How can you be so strong? How can a bastard be so strong? Supreme Sage Shuetu roared crazily. In the next moment, his body burned with bright red blood flames. Then his body flashed, and he charged toward Tianyang fiercely. Blood slaughter heaven and earth. Blood body covers the sky. A monstrous blood sea appeared behind him. Supreme Sage Shuetu's body also expanded several times. His body was red, as if he had turned into a giant made of blood. He was thousands of feet tall and stood tall. Second brother actually burst out with the power of the blood body. TSK, a saint can make him like this. He has regressed. Blood slaughter heaven and earth was Supreme Sage Shuetu's famous killing move. It was close to a Saint Emperor's martial skill. However, there would be a great backlash if he used it. It would make his primordial spirit much weaker. Therefore, he would not use it until the last moment. Upon seeing this, the Blood Soul Great Saint chuckled and shook his head. I wonder what will happen to your Saint Stage Jr., who is half of my Xianyuan family's bloodline. Although it was a question, Supreme Sage Shuetu had already come to a conclusion. Tianyang would die without a doubt. Supreme Sage Shuetu, who had burst out with the power of the blood body, was unstoppable except for Supreme Sage Shuetu and the head of the Xianyuan family. Damn it! At this moment, the Red Dragon Saint's expression changed. With a low roar, he charged towards Supreme Sage Shuetu. Your opponent is me. Supreme Sage Shuetu followed closely behind like a maggot. He gathered soul seals in his hands and blasted them out. Get lost! Dragon Sage Shuetu roared. The Dragon Emperor seal in his hand shone with a Saint Emperor light and forced Supreme Sage Shuetu away. However, Supreme Sage Shuetu's giant sword had already collided with the 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation. Boom! A terrifying sound that was enough to deafen any cultivator below the level of Wu Zun rang out. The entire world seemed to have gone berserk because of the collision between the 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation and the blood body. Space was like a balloon that had been forced open by a great force. Cracks appeared continuously. In an instant, the space within 10 miles of Tianyang and Supreme Sage Shuetu was riddled with holes. Supreme Sage Shuetu looked at the 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation that had shrunk to the size of a head after he had burst out with the blood body. You want to kill me with this? Tianyang, on the other hand, smiled faintly. If this thing can't kill you, is it enough with this thing? After he finished speaking, a ball of flame suddenly ignited in his eyes. Immortal divine body, undying eyes. Flame of extinction. Boom! A ball of flame that could destroy the world shot out of Tianyang's eyes and merged with the sword light of the 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation. Supreme Sage Shuetu's 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation, which had been blocked by Supreme Sage Shuetu, instantly burst into flames. Then, this ball of flame ignited the blood sword. Then it ignited the entire blood body. With Yun Xianyuan, the Xianyuan saintess, who knew everything about the Xianyuan family like the back of her hand, Tianyang naturally knew how to deal with Supreme Sage Xuetu. Supreme Sage Xuetu was stronger than Supreme Sage Xuetu, and he didn't underestimate his opponent like Supreme Sage Xuetu. It was almost impossible for Tianyang to use the space-time blink to kill Supreme Sage Xuetu. However, Yin Xuanyuan's weakness gave Tianyang an idea. An 8th Order Sacred Flame could ignite Supreme Sage Xuetu's blood body. Tianyang didn't have an 8th Order Sacred Flame, and his half-step 8th Order Sacred Flame couldn't replace it. Then what about the Flame of Extinction? Supreme Sage Xuetu, who was thousands of feet tall, let out a terrifying roar. His entire body was ignited by the Flame of Extinction. Then, the 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation unleashed its true power and viciously cut Supreme Sage Xuetu's body into pieces. Damn you, bastard! Even though his blood body was ignited by the Flame of Extinction and destroyed by the 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation, Supreme Sage Xuetu was still alive. He used all his strength to punch at Tianyang. Tianyang, on the other hand, smiled slightly. The power of his primordial spirit completely erupted at this moment. The secret art of ice and the godly piercing blade. No! Supreme Sage Xuetu's pupils contracted. He was about to use the power of his primordial spirit to forcibly break the ice. However, the godly piercing blade hit Supreme Sage Xuetu's Sea of Soul. Chapter 1308. The God-piercing blade pierced the primordial spirit. Originally, the great Saint Xuetu's primordial spirit was close to becoming a primordial spirit sage. Even if he was frozen by the Ice Soul secret technique, he would only be frozen for a moment. Even if the God-piercing blade hit his core, it would not be able to break through all his defenses. However, the blood-soaked great sage was stupid because the heavenly sun had yet to use a killing move like the space-time instant. Just the 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation alone was not enough to kill the great sage. The great Saint Xuetu could not wait to use his primordial spirit power as the price. Blood body covers the heavens. In the end, the 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation could not kill him. Instead, the blood body covers was ignited by the flames of destruction and was severely injured. Coupled with the fact that his primordial spirit power was weakened, he was killed in one blow. Boom! The huge blood body covers instantly dissipated, forming a terrifying rain of blood that covered an area of 100 miles. The great Saint Xuetu's true yuan was also drained at this moment. His primordial spirit shattered, and he could not be more dead. Tianyang's eyes narrowed. His body flashed as he used the Boundless 9 transformations. He quickly arrived at the location of the great Saint Xuetu's primordial spirit fragment and waved his hand. The primordial spirit fragment was instantly devoured by Tianyang. Oh, there's a self-destruction seal? After devouring it, Tianyang was slightly taken aback. This time, he did not immediately receive the information from the great Saint Xuetu's primordial spirit fragment. Instead, the primordial spirit fragment immediately self-destructed after being devoured by Tianyang. Although Tianyang's powerful primordial spirit power was not harmed at all, Tianyang was still a little surprised. Looks like the Xianyuan family really put in a lot of effort to ensure that their secrets are not leaked. Tianyang chuckled to himself. Then, he looked at the surrounding primordial spirit fragments. Although the Sky-Sun realm wouldn't be able to obtain the information inside, the power of the great sage's primordial spirit would be a great tonic. Instantly, the black vortex in Tianyang's hand spun wildly. The primordial spirit fragments were all devoured by Tianyang into his body. It had become a part of Tianyang's primordial spirit. At this moment, Tianyang's primordial spirit power had almost reached the pinnacle of a beginner-level sage. He was close to a mid-level sage. As for Supreme Saint Xuetu's spatial pouch, Tianyang accepted it without hesitation and tossed it to the heaven's expanse Holy Spirit, asking her to decipher it. He did not believe that this self-detonation seal would be able to escape the mysterious heaven's expanse Saint Palace. How was this possible? Second brother is dead. At this moment, the Blood Soul Great Sage, who was fighting with the Red Dragon Sage, suddenly caught a glimpse of Tianyang devouring the Blood Slaughter Great Sage's primordial spirit fragment and taking away the Blood Slaughter Great Sage's space bag. Instantly, the Blood Soul Supreme Sage roared like a madman. "Get out of my way!" A sinister and terrifying Blood Soul imprint suddenly condensed between the Blood Soul Great Sage's hands and shot out. At the same time, the Blood Soul Supreme Sage roared and charged towards Tianyang. The Red Dragon Sage snorted and crushed the Blood Soul imprint with the Dragon Emperor seal in his hand. At the same time, he took advantage of the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's lowered guard to throw a punch. The Red Dragon's dragon flames burned wildly. Coupled with the Dragon Emperor seal's enhancement, the Red Dragon Sage's combat power was close to that of a Holy Emperor. With one punch, he sent the Blood Soul Supreme Sage flying. Another Supreme Sage is coming? At this moment, Tianyang raised an eyebrow and looked at the Blood Soul Supreme Sage who was flying towards him. He smiled slightly, and the great Void Sword embryo in his hand shone with a sharp sword light. Coincidentally, the time for the heaven-devouring secret skill was almost up. This was the best time to kill the Xianyuan family Supreme Elder. Single sword, celestial ascension. Boom! The great Void Sword embryo landed heavily on the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's chest, causing him to spit out a mouthful of dirty blood. At the same time, the Red Dragon Sage also charged over. Dragon Emperor Seal. The Red Dragon Sage roared, and the Dragon Emperor seal in his hand shone with blazing light. It turned into a huge seal and charged towards the Blood Soul Supreme Sage. Blood Soul Burn. At this moment, the Blood Soul Supreme Sage suddenly reacted. With a low roar, a flame burned between his eyebrows. Blood Soul Curse. Then, a mysterious and complicated seal charged towards Tianyang. Tianyang was stunned. The Blood Soul Supreme Sage's primordial spirit had entered the Holy Realm. After thinking about it, it was normal. For Wu Zun, it was extremely difficult for the primordial spirit to enter the Holy Realm. However, it was different for the Blood Soul Supreme Sage, who was one of the top Supreme Sages. It was normal for him to have the power of a Holy Realm primordial spirit. However, it was a hasty curse. If he wanted to kill Tianyang with it, it would be impossible. It was still too early. Tianyang waved his hand, and the sky was filled with saber light. It turned into a terrifying rain of piercing sabers and charged towards the Blood Soul Curse. The piercing sabers came from the Heaven's Expanse Temple and were extremely powerful. With so many piercing sabers stacked together, even the Blood Soul Supreme Sage might not be able to withstand it. Holy Sage! The Blood Soul Supreme Sage exclaimed in disbelief. He only knew that Tianyang had the combat power of a Holy Sage. However, he did not know that Tianyang was a Holy Sage. At this moment, the Red Dragon Saint's Dragon Emperor seal came down and suppressed the Blood Soul Supreme Sage. The Blood Soul Curse was turned into a sieve by the terrifying rain of piercing sabers. Before it could hit Tianyang, it was shattered by the piercing sabers. Damn it! If the Blood Soul Supreme Sage continued to fight with the Red Dragon Saint, he might not be defeated so quickly even without the Blood Slayer Supreme Sage. However, after the Blood Slayer Supreme Sage died, the Blood Soul Supreme Sage lost his mind and wanted to kill Tianyang at all costs. In the end, he was mercilessly suppressed by the Dragon Emperor seal. Phew! These bastards from the Xianyuan family are really annoying. The Red Dragon Saint heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the Blood Soul Supreme Sage, who was under the suppression of the Dragon Emperor seal, and said coldly. Although the Red Dragon Saint went to fight and was defeated, the Red Dragon Saint sealed the entire True Dragon's sacred domain. However, the Heavenly Dragon Saint's betrayal and the attack of the two great saints from the Xianyuan family still caused the True Dragon's sacred domain to suffer heavy losses. As a result, the Red Dragon Saint glared at the Blood Soul Supreme Sage with murderous rage. Damn you, bastard! At this moment, the Blood Soul Supreme Sage glared at Heavenly Sun and roared. But Heavenly Sun ignored him. He looked up at the Crimson Dragon Sage and asked, "Is there any value in using this guy?" The Red Dragon Saint was stunned when he heard this. The Blood Soul Supreme Sage smiled coldly. "Value? Oomph, of course. Bastard, don't you want to save your parents? Do you know where they are? Do you want to know the trump card of the Xianyuan family? Do you think I'll give it to you if you do?" The Blood Soul Supreme Sage sneered. Before Tianyang could speak, Yin Xianyuan walked out of the spatial crack that Tianyang had just opened. "I'll give it to you." Yin Xianyuan looked at the Blood Soul Supreme Sage and said indifferently, "Yin Xianyuan." Seeing this, Supreme Sage Blood Soul flew into a rage. "You bastard! You're even more of a bastard than Tianyang. How dare you betray the Xianyuan family? If you hadn't hidden, I would have killed you first." The Blood Soul Supreme Sage roared crazily as if he wanted to struggle out and kill Yin Xianyuan. However, the Dragon Emperor seal was above the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's head. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't use any of his true yuan. Oomph. However, even if you're alive, your parents will definitely die. The Blood Soul Supreme Sage sneered when he couldn't struggle. "And Tianyang, you've tainted the bloodline of the Xianyuan family." Crack! The body of the Dragon Emperor was activated, and the power of the physical sanctification body was activated. Tianyang stomped on the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's head. Chapter 1309. There was a loud thud. Blood splattered all over the ground. On the other hand, Tianyang calmly reached out and grabbed the Blood Soul Great Sage's primordial spirit. "You killed him just like that?" At this moment, the Red Dragon Saint stared blankly at Heavenly Sunday. He didn't expect Heavenly Sun to be so straightforward. He killed as he pleased, leaving no room for the Blood Soul Supreme Sage. What's the point of keeping him if he's of no use? This guy is so ugly that it's like he's mentally polluted. Tianyang said calmly. The primordial spirit of the Blood Soul Supreme Sage, who was forcefully pulled out from his hand, finally understood. You dare to kill me?" The Blood Soul Supreme Sage's face was filled with disbelief. He was a Supreme Sage. Tianyang dared to kill him? Furthermore, he killed him so cleanly? Tianyang, on the other hand, smiled faintly and pointed his finger. Instantly, the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's body trembled as if he had been electrocuted. The next moment, there was a cracking sound as if something had shattered. The seal on the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's space bag that he had given to the little golden girl to find a way to break did not take long for the little golden girl to perfectly break it. In reality, this method was not very clever. It was merely a restrictive array formation set up in the primordial spirits of the Blood Soul Supreme Sage, the Blood Soul Supreme Sage, and the other Xianyuan family members. As long as there was brute force that wanted to devour the primordial spirits and obtain the information within, the restrictive array formation would automatically activate and cause the primordial spirits to self-destruct. If Tianyang was given time, with Qianyang's attainments in array formation, he could have easily broken it. However, as the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's primordial spirit was shattered and the fragments of his primordial spirit were disappearing rapidly, Tianyang had no chance. As for now, why is my primordial spirit restrictive array gone? The Blood Soul Supreme Sage's face was filled with disbelief. This was a restrictive array that was branded on the souls and primordial spirits of the Xianyuan family members. Even if a formation sage were to take action, it would take at least half a year to a few years to break it. Not to mention a few years, even if it took a minute, the primordial spirit would have already exploded. Moreover, no one dared to kill a member of the Xianyuan family. Therefore, no one had been able to break the seal for many years. Who would have thought that Tianyang would be able to break the restrictions of the Xianyuan family so quickly? Damn it! The Blood Soul Great Sage reacted instantly and let out a low roar. The power of his primordial spirit surged continuously as he attempted to self-destruct. However, how could Tianyang give the Blood Soul Supreme Sage the chance to do so? He slashed out with his sword. The core of the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's primordial spirit exploded instantly. Just as the primordial spirit was about to shatter, The devouring heaven seal burst out and released a powerful devouring force that devoured the primordial spirit of the blood soul supreme sage. Torrents of information and the power of the saint stage primordial spirit surged into Tianyang's body and became nourishment for Tianyang's primordial spirit. Tianyang's body trembled, and he immediately sat down cross-legged. Could there be a problem? Seeing this, the Crimson Dragon Saint immediately tensed up. The strength that Tianyang had displayed was in no way inferior to the Crimson Dragon Saint. If something happened to Tianyang, the true Dragon Sacred World would have one less almighty. However, 10 minutes later, Tianyang regained consciousness. Before the Red Dragon Saint could say anything, the power of Tianyang's primordial spirit erupted. Middle-level Saint stage. What the F***CK? The Red Dragon Saint was dumbfounded. When Tianyang broke through to the Origin Saint stage in the Divine Paradise, he was extremely shocked. He did not expect Tianyang to break through to the middle-level Saint stage in such a short period of time. The power of the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's primordial spirit is not bad. Tianyang praised. His primordial spirit was only a step away from the middle-level Saint stage. Now that he had devoured the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's primordial spirit, he was able to break through to the middle-level Saint stage. Now that he had devoured the Blood Soul Supreme Sage's primordial spirit, not only did he break through, but he was also much stronger than the average middle-level Saint stage cultivator. On the other hand, Yin Xinyuan looked at the headless corpse that was suppressed by the Dragon Emperor seal with a complicated expression on his face. In the past, he could only look up to this person. He could only be a puppet under their feet, a saintess who was like an animal. Now, this person's head was crushed by his own master. Speaking of which, where is Yuhan? Tianyang asked curiously. Why did Yin Xinyuan come out? But Ling Yuhan was nowhere to be seen. However, just as he spoke, Tianyang felt a chill run down his spine. Master Fu, I am here, yo. Among the four of you, 2 of you have obtained the inheritance from the Divine Dragon Ancestral Temple. After the battle in the Red Dragon City, the original Red Dragon Pagoda was in ruins, and the Red Dragon City Governor's Mansion was almost destroyed by the traitor Heavenly Dragon Saint. Therefore, everyone could only sit on the ground. Qi Ying Tian obtained the inheritance of the Burning Sky Dragon King. As for me, I obtained the inheritance of the 100 Battle Dragon Saint. Jin Zhan said with a hint of envy in his voice. Although the 100 Battle Dragon Saint was a powerful dragon saint who was close to the Dragon King realm in the history of the Dragon Tribe, he was still a little weaker than the Dragon King. Moreover, the inheritance of the Burning Sky Dragon King that Qi Ying Tian obtained was one of the best among the inheritances released by the Divine Dragon Ancestral Temple. That's not bad. The Red Dragon Saint had a gratified expression on his face. Due to the fact that the younger generation of the true Dragon Sacred Domain was stuck at that time, the ones who went to the Dragon God Ancestral Temple were not the peak half-saints or high-level half-saints of the other dragon factions. Dragon Saint Red Dragon was worried that the people of the true Dragon Sacred Domain might not obtain a great opportunity. Unexpectedly, they obtained the inheritance of 2 Divine Dragon Ancestral Temples at once. Now, there was hope for the future of the true Dragon Sacred Domain. While Dragon Saint Red Dragon was discussing with the people of the true Dragon Sacred Domain, Tianyang was on the other side with Ling Yuhan and Yin Xinyuan. That's why the Heavens Expanse Saint Spirit said that the mystical beautying body would be of great use. So I kept her. Otherwise, I would have broken her neck long ago. Tianyang said helplessly. Ling Yuhan nodded when she heard that. That little fellow said so. It should be reliable. Ling Yuhan had interacted with the little golden girl in the Vientiane Sky ruins. However, the little golden girl was very cold. Even if she knew how important Ling Yuhan was to Tianyang, she could not be bothered with Ling Yuhan. I'm done talking. Can you get down from my head? Tianyang said. Ling Yuhan giggled when she heard that and jumped down from Tianyang's head. Tianyang touched his head and smiled. When Ling Yuhan threw a tantrum earlier, she lay on his head. Ling Yuhan's soft breasts were on top of Tianyang's head. The top of his head was still warm. On the other hand, Xianyuan Yun looked at the smile on Tianyang's face, and a trace of loneliness appeared on her face. "How's your strength now?" Tianyang asked. He suddenly realized that even he could not see through Ling Yuhan. Wu Zun is at the peak of the 9th heaven realm. He's about to break through to the half-saint realm, and he's cultivated 3 saint paths. At the mention of this, Ling Yuhan immediately said happily. Hearing that, Tianyang was slightly shocked. How long had it been? His cultivation is close to the half-saint realm? Even if Ling Yuhan was very talented, this speed was too fast. At this moment, Ling Yuhan seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed slightly. "Master, what are you going to do next?" Tianyang's expression changed when he heard that. Killing intent burned in his eyes. Chapter 13:10. The Xianyuan Family. Spiritual Palace. Ever since the Supreme Saint of Thunder's spiritual lamp had been extinguished half a day ago, the Supreme Saint of Blood Slaughter and the Supreme Saint of Blood Soul's spiritual lamps had been dimming. 10 minutes ago, Great Sage Bloodsoak's spirit lamp had also gone out. 30 seconds ago, the Blood Soul Great Sage was also extinguished. Great Sage Blood Soul, Great Sage Blood Slaughter, Great Sage Thunder Magic, Holy Sun, Xianyuan, Xianyuan Kong. The Xianyuan family had lost so many people to Tianyang. Furthermore, each and every one of them was either a genius or an expert. The patriarch of the Xianyuan family had a terrible look on his face. He stared at the spiritual lamps that had been extinguished forever in the spiritual hall. Grand Supreme Elder, Second Supreme Elder, First Supreme Elder, Holy Sun, Holy Maiden are missing, and there's also the insignificant Xianyuan Kong. Tianyang, that little bastard, he actually caused our Xianyuan family to suffer such heavy losses. A great sage, no matter which force he was in, he would be one of the strongest, the pillar of a force. For the Xianyuan family, it was the reason why the Xianyuan family could stand at the pinnacle of the continent and become the #1 family in the Xiantian world. However, because of one Tianyang, 3 of them had already died. Even the Xianyuan family only had 3 great sages in their ranks. Immortal bloodline, worthy of its name. Holy Son Xianyuan couldn't kill him. Holy Daughter Xianyuan couldn't kill him. Great Elder and Thunder Great Saint couldn't kill him either. Even the 2 Great Elders, the Blood Soul Great Sage and the Blood Slaughter Great Sage, couldn't kill him. The patriarch of the Xianyuan family said in a low voice. His eyelids drooped, making it impossible for others to see his expression. However, the murderous intent in his words was like a steel knife that ruthlessly stabbed into the soul ocean of everyone present. "Lord Patriarch, why don't we just forget about it? It's just that Her Highness has been defiled. 3 great saints have already died. You're the only great saint left in the Xianyuan family." An elder could not help but ask. Hearing this, the head of the Xianyuan family, who was about to turn around and leave, stopped in his tracks and waved his hand. A flame immediately ignited on the arm of the person who spoke. Hiss! In the blink of an eye, the elder's left arm was burned to ashes. However, he did not dare to scream and could only stand there silently. If Xianyuan Kong is the only one who died, then forget it. However, the Holy Sun is dead, the Grand Elder is dead, and the 2 Grand Elders are also dead. You want me to forget about it? Let the Xianyuan family forget about it? The head of the Xianyuan family said coldly, "If Tianyang has the ability to kill me, then come at me. If you have the ability to topple my Xianyuan family, then come." The Xianyuan family was able to become the #1 family in the profound sky world. They have been around for countless years. How can a bastard from another trash world topple them? "Disperse," the head of the Xianyuan family said. Then he walked alone in the darkness. The other elders and deacons looked at each other and could only disperse in the end. In the center of the Xianyuan family, underground, even the second elder didn't know that there was another world beneath the patriarch's mansion in the center of the Xianyuan family. As for the Xianyuan family's family head, he went underground. There was a huge altar in front of him. Countless strange and complicated inscriptions were engraved on the altar. Streams of equally strange and powerful energy flowed within it. In the center of the altar, a woman in gorgeous clothes knelt on the altar. Her hands were hung by dark blue chains. Her eyes were tightly shut, but one could still see how beautiful she would be when she opened her eyes. Xianyuan God Goddess, Xianyuan Qingming, your good son is really good. The head of the Xianyuan family said eerily. Hearing this, the body of the woman whose hands were bound on the altar moved slightly and opened her eyes. Streaks of mysterious runes flashed across the depths of his blue eyes. This woman was the Xianyuan family's holy daughter, Tian Hao's wife, and Tianyang's mother. Killing Xianyuan Kong wasn't enough. You killed the Holy Sun and the three great saints. Xianyuan Qingming, this is you and that trash from the Tianshao great world. The bastard son you gave birth to. The head of the Xianyuan family roared angrily. Immortal bloodline? It's hard to say if the immortal heavenly lord of the primordial age still existed. Tian Hao, that trash, just happened to have a strong recovery physique. Yet you insisted on sleeping with that trash. You were only a trash of the metamorphosis realm back then. Do you know that your holy daughter bloodline hasn't appeared in the Xianyuan family for hundreds of thousands of years? Do you know that if you had maintained your virginity until now, the Xianyuan family would have been favored by the Xianyuan god and become the strongest force in the Xiantian great world? It's all because of your whims that you destroyed the hope of the Xianyuan family. You even gave birth to a bastard son and destroyed the foundation of the Xianyuan family. The head of the Xianyuan family roared. In the center of the altar, the face of the trapped woman did not change at all. Instead, she revealed a motherly smile. Is that so? That Yang is really powerful. How old is he? He can even kill a great saint. The head of the Xianyuan family trembled when he heard that. He forcefully resisted the urge to kill Xianyuan Qingming and took a few steps back. If I'm not wrong, that bastard will come to the Xianyuan family after killing the first Supreme Elder and second Supreme Elder. At that time, I like to see how stubborn you can be. I'll spare Tian Hao's life for now. When Tian Yang comes, I'll kill both the father and son so that you'll give up completely. The head of the Xianyuan family said coldly. Xianyuan Qingming smiled disdainfully when she heard that. Why? Because of you? How much stronger do you think you're compared to Xianyuan Guxiong and Xianyuan Guqing? Xianyuan Guxiong and Xianyuan Guqing were the Blood Soul Supreme Saint and the Blood Butcher Supreme Saint. The head of the Xianyuan family did not say anything. He merely mouthed two words and strode away. Xianyuan Qingming's face changed completely when she saw that. Master, you really don't need the Red Dragon Saint's help? Ling Yuhan asked doubtfully in the Vientiane Sky ruins. This time, Tianyang did not ask the Red Dragon Saint for help when he attacked the Xianyuan family. There's no need. The Xianyuan family only has one Supreme Saint left. I can deal with him alone. Tianyang had gradually mastered the power of the origin of chaos during the battle with the Thunder Soul Supreme Saint and the Blood Butcher Supreme Saint. The strength of the head of the Xianyuan family was clearly recorded in the primordial spirit of the Blood Soul Supreme Saint. Tianyang was confident that he could defeat and kill the head of the Blood Soul Supreme Saint. The Central Divine Prefecture. The speed of the heavens' expanse, 9 transformations, was extremely fast. Before long, Tianyang saw the outline of the Xintian Great World's #1 prefecture. Then, he traversed the vast land and arrived at the center of the Central Divine Prefecture. The Xianyuan family. I've just arrived. Let's greet them first. Tianyang smiled, and the great void sword embryo appeared in his hand in a flash. Then he slashed out with his sword. Sword breaking 9 desolates. A mighty sword light pierced through the air and shot out explosively. Chapter 13:11. The Xianyuan family was different from the other forces. Their main force was in a separate small world. The Xianyuan family itself, including the branch and direct descendants, were all in the center of the divine central continent. Therefore, the center of the divine central continent should have been filled with spiritual qi. However, the Xianyuan family had plundered the spiritual qi of heaven and earth for thousands of miles, causing the area around the Xianyuan family to be barren. Only some of the cities under the Xianyuan family's protection could get some leftovers from the Xianyuan family. Boom! There was a thunderous sound. Instantly, energy ripples appeared outside the Xianyuan family. What's going on? Countless cultivators appeared in the cities around the Xianyuan family. They looked in disbelief at the terrifying sword light that seemed to have fallen from the sky and was about to tear the world apart. They were in disbelief. There was actually someone in this era who dared to provoke the Xianyuan family, who dared to attack the Xianyuan family's space barrier. Boom! There was another loud sound. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, the Xianyuan family's huge space barrier was shattered. The terrifying sword light was like a spear that pierced straight into the Xianyuan family. It directly destroyed the branch family outside the Xianyuan family. Who knew how many people had died? Some cultivators were stunned. What was going on? Someone attacking the Xianyuan family was terrifying news that was enough to shock the entire Xiantian Great World. The attacker actually killed all the branch family members of the Xianyuan family. Who was this person who didn't want to live? At this moment, Tianyang stepped into the void. He looked at the mess outside the Xianyuan family and smiled faintly. Xianyuan Kongming, are you still not going to come out? Who are you? At this moment, an angry roar suddenly erupted from the Xianyuan family. Then, an elder soared into the sky. He unleashed his peak half-saint cultivation and charged toward Tianyang. How dare you destroy the Xianyuan family's space barrier and destroy the branch family members of the Xianyuan family? I, Xianyuan Long, hereby pronounce you a death sentence. The Xianyuan family elder snorted. Golden light gathered in his hand and turned into a long spear that was dozens of feet long. Then the spear shot out explosively. The momentum seemed to be able to destroy everything. Hee. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. He didn't even move. A majestic aura erupted from Tianyang's body. Boom! In an instant, the golden spear with terrifying might was shattered by the heavenly sun. As for the old man who used the golden spear, he was also struck by Tianyang's aura, causing him to spit out blood. To think that his life force had been cut off. Xianyuan Kongming, if you want to be a good-for-nothing, just say it. Why send your subordinates to their deaths? Tianyang chuckled and said in a clear voice. At this time, the surrounding people finally reacted. Who exactly was the Xianyuan Kongming that Tianyang mentioned? Shockingly, it was the current patriarch of the Xianyuan family, a great sage. He actually called the great sage by his name. They even attacked the Xianyuan family. Could it be that this young man is actually an old monster of the great saint realm who has regained his youth? An expert couldn't help but guess. However, even after Tianyang's provocation, there was still no response from the Xianyuan family. Seeing this, Tianyang shook his head gently and took a step forward. Boom! Although this step was in the void, a terrifying aura still blasted countless buildings below into dust. Among them, countless members of the Xianyuan family were also killed by this aura. How dare you? At this time, an expert from the Xianyuan family finally attacked in anger. A terrifying firestorm blasted out from the Xianyuan family. In the next moment, an old man who was emitting the power of a true Yuan saint roared and attacked. Angry Buddha's purification. Suddenly, a Buddha that was burning with flames appeared behind the true Yuan saint. In the next moment, the old man attacked. In the blink of an eye, he blasted out 81 palms. The flaming Buddha also blasted out 81 palms. Each of them was burning with terrifying flames. Together with the firestorm from before, the power of this attack instantly skyrocketed. Even a true great sage expert wouldn't be willing to receive this attack empty-handed. A saint? Close to a great sage? Seeing this, Tianyang raised an eyebrow. The Xianyuan family's foundation was indeed extraordinary. He recognized this person from the blood soul great sage's memories. He was the second elder of the Xianyuan family. Just the second elder alone was more powerful than the strongest person in the Snow Sky Fox clan, Jiang Tianbing. There were also the two great sages that Tianyang had killed and the blood soul great sage that the Red Dragon sage and Tianyang had joined forces to kill. Just the combination of three great sages and one who was close to a great sage was enough to dominate the entire Xintian great world. Moreover, the Xinyuan family also had someone who was stronger than the Blood Soul Great Sage and the Blood Butcher Great Sage. Xinyuan Kongming. Die. The second elder of the Xinyuan family roared. The 81 flaming palms seemed to have merged into one and blasted toward Tianyang with terrifying power. It was as if the temperature of the surrounding air had risen by hundreds and thousands of degrees because of the flaming palms. Instantly, the area within a 1,000-mile radius turned into a scorching hell. Countless cultivators below the primordial transformation realm in the Xinyuan family city were roasted alive by the terrifying temperature. Tianyang, on the other hand, smiled faintly and opened his mouth. A terrifying suction force was released from Tianyang's mouth. In the next moment, the sea of fire trembled slightly. Then, it turned into a stream of flames and was swallowed into Tianyang's stomach. It was clean, not a single bit was left. How? Seeing this, the second elder of the Xinyuan family was completely dumbfounded. Tianyang smiled faintly and took a step forward. Inner core gathered in his hand and was about to make a decisive move against the second elder of the Xinyuan family. At this moment, a deep and resounding shout suddenly sounded out. "Little bastard, if you dare to touch the second elder, I will kill your father immediately." Hearing this, Tianyang was slightly startled and raised his head. He saw that in the distance, the Xinyuan family patriarch was holding a middle-aged man in ragged clothes. His face was extremely ferocious. That man was none other than the Tian family patriarch, Tian Hao. Seeing this, Tianyang's face turned ugly and the inner core in his hand fluctuated. "Xinyuan Kongming, if you dare to touch my father, then wait for the entire Xinyuan family to be buried with my father," Tianyang roared. Hearing this, Xinyuan Kongming sneered. The strange thing was that the figure holding Tian Hao suddenly became transparent. Chapter 13:12. A dignified great sage only knows this little trick. At this moment, Tianyang smiled indifferently. In an instant, a terrifying and powerful dragon pattern bloomed on the surface of his skin. The terrifying dragon power rose, almost exceeding the limit of the sage realm. With lightning speed, he turned around and punched. Boom! The fist and the sword light collided, instantly stirring up a terrifying energy ripple. Xinyuan Kongming, who slashed out with the sword, also had a slight change in expression. His figure flashed, and the sword light in his hand bloomed again. Tianyang was not afraid. With a laugh, he formed a seal with both hands. A terrifying seal was condensed. Primordial mystique, primordial blood seal. Boom! An incomparably terrifying blood-colored seal erupted from Tianyang's hands. It seemed to carry the power of the primordial wilderness. It could swallow heaven and earth with blood. Tianyang did not focus much on cultivating the primordial blood seal, but he had already cultivated it to the 3rd level. In terms of power, it was not inferior to the strongest sacred martial arts. In an instant, the sword light slashed out by Xinyuan Kongming shattered, and Xinyuan Kongming's expression also became extremely ugly at this moment. He put down the face of the Xinyuan family's patriarch. First, he held Tian Hao hostage, and then he secretly launched a sneak attack. Like this, it was still resolved by Tianyang. Just the strength that he had displayed in the blink of an eye was no weaker than the Blood Soul Supreme Sage. This guy is only 30 years old. Xinyuan Kongming's heart was set off a storm. Unlike other cultivators, Xinyuan Kongming knew Tianyang very well. 31 years ago, Xinyuan Qingming traveled to various worlds. Her last stop was the Tianshao Great World, and it was 31 years ago that Xinyuan Qingming and Tian Hao met. A year later, she gave birth to the current Tianyang. Xinyuan Kongming did not know that Tianyang actually had 15 years of innately terminated meridians. Even if he was a waste, he had only cultivated for 15 years. However, even according to Xinyuan Kongming's knowledge, Even if Tianyang started cultivating in his mother's womb, he had only cultivated for about 30 years. In 30 years, he had the power to approach and even defeat a great sage. This kind of talent was no longer a prodigy. It was a monster, an existence that should not exist in this world. Immortal bloodline, is it really so powerful? Xinyuan Kongming stared at Tianyang's eyes. Whether it was Tianyang or Tian Hao, each of their talents were enough to make every one of the Xinyuan family's jealousy. If Tian Hao had not reached the rank 7 martial honorable realm, he would have killed his way into the Xianyuan family and been captured by Xinyuan Kongming. If he had endured for a few more years, he might have been able to enter the sage realm. In the entire Xianyuan family, only the Xianyuan goddess Xianyuan Qingming, who appeared once in a million years, could be compared to Tian Hao. In the end, Tian Hao actually tainted Xianyuan Qingming's pure bloodline. Now, there was a Tianyang who was even more terrifying than Xianyuan Qingming and Tian Hao. Even if the Xianyuan family had stood at the peak of the Xianyuan great world for countless years, and even had many Xianyuan emperor physiques, Xianyuan Kongming's eyes were still filled with jealousy. At this moment, Xianyuan Kongming's expression suddenly changed. Tianyang, who was in front of him, suddenly disappeared. Oh no! As if he had thought of something, Xianyuan Kongming instantly turned his head and saw the scene of Tianyang saving Tian Hao. Damn it! He was actually distracted. Xianyuan Kongming growled, held the Xianyuan sword in his hand, and viciously attacked Tianyang. On the other hand, Tianyang's expression was indifferent. Since Tian Hao had been saved, now was the time to end things with Xianyuan Kongming. With a flash of black light, the great void sword embryo appeared, and with a flash of white light, the heaven-devouring secret skill was unleashed. Boom! A terrifying, devouring power erupted from the heavenly sword. The heaven and earth spiritual qi that the Xianyuan family had accumulated for countless years was crazily being devoured by Tianyang. At this moment, Tianyang's aura skyrocketed. Stop it! Seeing this, Xianyuan Kongming's eyes turned red. This was the heaven and earth spiritual qi that the Xianyuan family had accumulated for countless years. This little bastard was actually devouring it in front of him. Xianyuan Dragon Slaying Sword. Xianyuan Kongming roared and slashed out with his sword. As if it could split mountains and seas, a terrifying sword radiance erupted from Xianyuan Kongming's Xianyuan sword. Its power was on a completely different level from that of the Xianyuan saint. At this moment, Tianyang had also completed the leap from the beginner saint stage to the intermediate saint stage. Blossom of the Red Spider Lily. Tianyang's expression was indifferent as he slashed out with his sword. The massacre domain turned into a surging nether river. A flower that combined life and death bloomed enchantingly. Boom! It seemed that everything around them was shattered because of this. Countless gorgeous buildings of the Xianyuan family were shattered at this moment, and the second elder of the Xianyuan family was in the aftermath of the battle between the two. He was killed by the shockwave. Under Xianyuan Kongming's incredulous gaze, his Xianyuan dragon slaying sword collided with the sword of Tianyang, an ordinary saint stage expert. Both of them dissipated. How can this bastard be so strong? Xianyuan Kongming said in disbelief. It was shocking enough for a saint to be able to fight against a great saint. Tianyang, on the other hand, was only a saint stage expert, but he was able to fight against a great saint like Xianyuan Kongming head-on. The difficulty had simply multiplied by countless times. However, Tianyang still managed to break through. Do you people of the Xianyuan family have the habit of being distracted on the battlefield? At this moment, an evil laughter sounded in Xianyuan Kongming's ears. Xianyuan Kongming's expression changed drastically. The power of his primordial spirit exploded, and he instantly found Tianyang's position. In a hurry, he stabbed out with his sword. However, Tianyang's sword was not only supported by the heavenly sword's sky-devouring secret technique, but also the chaos origin. Boom! 10,000 mammoth annihilation. This sword, integrated with the power of 6 saint paths, shattered Xianyuan Kongming's hasty stab with an unstoppable force, and at the same time, sent him flying. Xianyuan Kongming spurted blood from his mouth. Tianyang Sword Dao, Boundless Dao, Life and Death Dao, 10,000 Mammoth Dao, as well as the power of the nascent Saint Stage and True Yuan Saint Stage rushed into Xianyuan Kongming's body. Without mercy, it directly impacted Xianyuan Kongming's body. Even though Xianyuan Kongming had tried his best to eliminate the power of 6 Saint Paths, it might be easy to eliminate one Saint Path, but to eliminate the fusion of 6 Saint Paths, it was almost as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Xianyuan Kongming had already exhausted all his strength to restore peace in his body. How could he have the time to care about where he was sent flying? Rumble, with a loud bang, Xianyuan Kongming's body directly crashed into the Patriarch's mansion and turned it into dust. Smoke and dust filled the sky. At this moment, Tianyang was stunned. The power of his primordial spirit noticed that under the Patriarch's mansion, it seemed that there was another world. In the next moment, Tianyang's body trembled as he felt a familiar aura from the depths of his soul. His primordial spirit surged wildly, and the smoke and dust instantly dispersed. Tianyang also saw the huge altar underground. Chapter 13:13. Tianyang was stunned. Then, with the connection of blood being thicker than water, he instantly recognized her. The mother of this body, the heavenly lady of the Xianyuan family, Xianyuan Qingming. What? Seeing this, Xianyuan Kongming's expression changed. He did not expect to crash into his own master's mansion. Xianyuan Qingming was exposed. However, Xianyuan Kongming did not know that if he was defeated by Tianyang, Tianyang could still find Xianyuan Qingming's whereabouts with the memories of the Blood Soul Supreme Sage that Tianyang had just devoured. It would just take a little effort. Is that Master's mother? In the Vientiane Sky Market, Ling Yuhan also saw Xianyuan Qingming, who was sealed in the center of the altar through Tianyang's vision. So beautiful, Ling Yuhan exclaimed. Tian Hao, who was thrown into the Vientiane Sky Market by Tianyang before he could say a word to Tianyang, was still in a daze. When he heard Xianyuan Qingming's name, he jumped up instantly. Xiaoming? You saw Xiaoming? Tian Hao roared, his eyes red. Wu Zun's aura of a stage 7 state was released. Ling Yuhan was shocked. She shared the vision with Tianyang and knew what kind of person Tian Hao was, so she did not dare to say anything. She's under the master's mansion of the Xianyuan family. As expected, hearing this, Tian Hao's face suddenly became ferocious. The Xianyuan family bastards only know how to sacrifice innocent people for them. Hearing this, although Ling Yuhan did not understand, he could only nod his head. At this moment, after Tianyang saw Xianyuan Qingming, he immediately changed his mind and rushed towards Xianyuan Qingming. For this trip, destroying the Xianyuan family was secondary. First, he had to find Xianyuan Qingming and rescue her. Only with his parents safe would Tianyang have the confidence to go on a killing spree. Don't even think about it. Seeing this, Xianyuan Kongming also noticed Tianyang's movements. With a roar, he charged towards Tianyang. After all, Xianyuan Kongming was a powerhouse among the great sages. Although the 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation had caused him a lot of trouble, it was repaired by a Xianyuan Kongming in just a few seconds. Other than the loss of blood and qi, there were no side effects at all. Instantly, he activated his movement technique and rushed out in an attempt to stop Tianyang. On the other hand, Tianyang's Boundless 9 Transformations was a powerful movement technique that could grow infinitely. On top of that, Tianyang's Boundless Dao was nearing the Great Saint Realm. The two complemented each other. The extreme speed that erupted was naturally not what Xianyuan Kongming could contend with. In an instant, Tianyang arrived at the altar. However, as if there was a wall of air, Tianyang was sent flying as soon as he rushed up. Ha ha! Xianyuan Qingming was an existence favored by Lord Profound God. Even if the bloodline in her body is tainted, Lord Profound God still values Xianyuan Qingming. Even a trace of Lord Profound God's divine power is enough to make a great sage helpless, let alone a mere sage like you." Seeing that Tianyang was sent flying, Xianyuan Kongming's face suddenly revealed a trace of a maniacal smile. Hearing this, Tianyang's face darkened slightly. He did not expect the identity of this body's mother to be so troublesome. Without a doubt, Lord Profound God was also a deity. In other words, he was in existence on the same level as the Snow Fox God, Snow God, and the Sky Tyrant Dragon God. A deity is an existence above the Holy Emperor. If you want to break through, I'm afraid that ordinary methods will not be effective. Tianyang also noticed that although this layer of air wall looked soft and weak, it did not have much strength. However, with his previous speed, if converted into attack power, he could completely kill the second elder of the Xianyuan family. However, he was still sent flying back. In that case, it was possible that his 10,000 mammoth annihilation would also be reflected by this divine power barrier. "How dare you barge into my Xianyuan family and cause a ruckus? Kid, go to hell." At this moment, Xianyuan Kongming's face suddenly became ferocious. He roared angrily and charged towards Tianyang. Space-time blink. At this moment, Tianyang snorted coldly and activated the chaos origin. Space-time stagnated, including everyone in the Vientiane Sky ruins. The space-time within a 100-meter radius of them seemed to have slowed down countless times. Xianyuan Kongming's ferocious face was also dissected into countless images. Tianyang was the only one who was free in this stagnated space-time. Boom! With a slash of the sword, space-time returned to normal, and a terrifying wound was left on Xianyuan Kongming's torso. A second passed. Fresh blood spurted out like a waterfall. Xianyuan Kongming instantly spat out a large mouthful of blood. He was severely injured, and for a short period of time, he no longer had the strength to chase after Tianyang. What kind of technique was that? Xianyuan Kongming stared at Tianyang's rapidly flying back and spat out another mouthful of blood as he roared. At that moment, Xianyuan Kongming even felt that he had lost contact with the entire world. He could only watch as Tianyang heavily slashed his chest with a terrifying sword. As for him, other than the protective true origin and the sacred robe, he could do nothing to defend himself. What kind of demonic technique was that? Xianyuan Kongming's face turned solemn. At this moment, Tianyang arrived outside the divine power barrier once again. Even space-time blink can't do anything? Tianyang's face sank slightly. The previous space-time blink included the divine power barrier. However, the space-time stagnation of the divine power barrier was far less terrifying than Xianyuan Kongming's. If that's the case, Tianyang's eyes narrowed. At this moment, Xianyuan Kongming's face twisted and he laughed maniacally. "Still want to struggle? How can mere mortals like you shake the power of the profound God?" At this moment, the great void sword embryo in Tianyang's hand was filled with traces of chaotic light. The next moment, Tianyang slashed out with his sword. Boom! This sword seemed to contain the boundless great Tao of the heavens and realms. The divine power barrier could not withstand this sword that contained the origin of chaos and exploded with a loud bang. At this moment, Xianyuan Qingming also noticed Tianyang. Instantly, her eyes widened and she shook her head frantically. "Don't come over." Tianyang was stunned. Then he slashed out 2 sword radiances from his hands and cut off the 2 chains. At this moment, Xianyuan Qingming's face turned pale instantly. Tianyang did not understand, but his figure still flashed, and he came to Xianyuan Qingming's side. With a wave of his hand, Xianyuan Qingming was also taken into the Vientiane Sky ruins. At this moment, a furious roar suddenly came out from Xianyuan Kongming's throat. "How is this possible? How is this possible?" Xianyuan Kongming roared angrily. The divine power barrier that Lord Xianshun put down could not withstand this brat sword? What kind of monster is this brat? If that's the case, Xianyuan Kongming roared. In the next moment, the space bag flashed, and 2 figures appeared in his hands. What? Tianyang was stunned. In the Vientiane Sky ruins, Yin Xuanyuan's face changed drastically at this moment. "Father! Mother!" Yin Xianyuan roared. At this moment, Xianyuan Kongming circulated his true origin and woke the two people in his hands. Xianyuan Kongming, you will die a horrible death. My Xiao Yin did not die with your dog *T, holy son. You are very wise. The woman instantly roared angrily. However, Xianyuan Kongming ignored her. Instead, he spoke in a strangely high-pitched voice. I am Xianyuan Kongming, the patriarch of the Xianyuan family. I have encountered the great calamity of Xianyuan. I am willing to use the blood of my family to summon the patriarch to come out of seclusion in advance. In the next moment, Xianyuan Kongming exerted strength in his hands and directly crushed the two people's heads. Seeing this in the Vientiane sky ruins, Yin Xuanyuan's face instantly turned pale, and he roared in grief. Chapter 13:14. Fresh blood splattered everywhere like flowers. In the Vientiane sky ruins, Yin Xianyuan knelt on the ground, his pupils dilated to the limit. He stared blankly at the scene in front of him. His line of sight zoomed in rapidly. However, even though Tianyang had already attacked with all his might, he could not stop Xianyuan Kongming's actions. After the two of them had their skulls crushed, their bodies were crushed by the true origin and turned into dust. They died without a complete corpse. Yin Xuanyuan's eyes were empty and lifeless. No matter how Ling Yuhan touched Yin Xianyuan, she could not make him move even an inch. When he was young, before the Black Beauty body was discovered, it was the two of them who had led Yin Xianyuan on the path of martial arts. After the Black Beauty body was discovered, it was the two of them who stood their ground and did not allow him to become a worthless piece of trash. His every move, every bit of his cultivation, every bit of it, all had their shadows. Now it was empty. Ah! Yin Xianyuan suddenly roared. A terrifying pure Yin force erupted from Yin Xuanyuan's body and surged wildly in all directions of the Vientiane sky ruins. Even experts like Xianyuan Qingming and Tian Hao were blown away by the terrifying pure Yin force. As for Ling Yuhan, even with her 9 nether saint body, she took a few steps back. With Yin Xianyuan as the center in the Vientiane sky ruins, there was a 1,000-mile radius. It was dark. The primordial qi fed on emotions. It was unknown when the heavens expanse Holy Spirit walked out of the heavens expanse temple. He looked at Yin Xianyuan in the center of the darkness with a complicated expression. His eyes were still empty and motionless. Yin Xuanyuan's Black Beauty Yin body had awakened. Damn it, Tianyang did not expect Xianyuan Kongming to be so cruel. He even wanted to kill his own people. The origin of chaos condensed on the great void sword embryo. In an instant, Tianyang roared. His figure suddenly disappeared. The surrounding time and space froze again. Time and space instant. At this moment, Xianyuan Kongming was severely injured by time and space instant. At this moment, he was already prepared. The true origin in his body exploded, greatly reducing the effect of time and space on Xianyuan Kongming. At the same time, it also released a terrifying defense, causing Heavenly Sun to only be able to send Xianyuan Kongming flying again, unable to directly kill him. Even so, Xianyuan Kongming spat a mouthful of blood. Of Xianyuan Kongming. I, Xianyuan Kongming, welcome the ancestor. In the next moment, the sky and of heaven and earth changed. The originally clear sky was completely covered by dark clouds at this moment. The ground beneath their feet was also unknowingly covered with numerous cracks. Heavenly Sun's pupil shrank. The power of the primordial spirit that had been spreading for 100 miles around him was actually forcefully withdrawn back into his body. And Xianyang, of Xianyang, of Xianyang, Xuanya of heaven, yes. Yun of the Xianyuan family was nourished by the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. The sky was always clear, but at this moment, it was shrouded in terrifying winds and torrential rain. Not only was it violent, but it was also extremely cold. The raindrops fell on Tianyang's arm, almost freezing Tianyang's arm. Tianyang stood in place. At this moment, he could only stand in place. At this moment, Even breathing was difficult for him. This is Tianyang's primordial spirit roared wildly, trying to break through that layer of blockage to investigate the surrounding situation. However, in the next moment, everything in Tianyang froze. In front of him, a door like the 2 or 3 meters high door that every family had, opened from nothingness. Inside the door, a white-haired young man slowly walked out. The young man was no more than 5 or 6 meters tall. His young face was not only handsome, but he seemed to be only 18 or 19 years old. However, the head of white hair was not normal white hair. Instead, it was white hair that had completely lost its vitality and was as withered as a dying tree. His pair of black eyes seemed to be able to see through the vicissitudes of the world. "Descendant, why have you awakened me?" The white-haired young man spoke slowly. His voice was very strange and incomparably old, just like his white hair. At this moment, Xianyuan Combing's face was also extremely respectful. "Lord Ancestor, it was not my wish to awaken you in advance this time. However, my Xianyuan family has reached a critical moment of life and death. If Lord Ancestor does not appear, my Xianyuan family's endless years of foundation will only be left with you," Xianyuan Kongming said. Hearing this, the white-haired young man nodded slightly, then glanced at Xianyuan Kongming. "You're the family head, right? A great Holy Land cultivation base. Not bad. However, my Xianyuan family's family head was a great Holy Land in the past. But it's up to you." Then, the white-haired young man stretched out his finger. Xianyuan Kongming was shocked to find that the almost fatal injuries caused by Tianyang's 2 instantaneous space-time were rapidly healing. And the true origin that Xianyuan Kongming had consumed in the battle was also rapidly recovering. This was the power of the Xianyuan family's ancestor. Only the family heads of the Xianyuan family knew that there had always been an ancestor in the Xianyuan family. He had been in seclusion since 50 million years ago. However, none of the family heads dared to disturb this ancestor, because this ancestor was the last trump card of the Xianyuan family. It was because Tianyang had almost destroyed the Xianyuan family that the family head of the Xianyuan family used this last resort to awaken the ancestor in seclusion. It seems at this time, it's really serious. The white-haired young man looked at the messy Xianyuan family again and said slowly. At the same time, his emotionless eyes looked at Tianyang. Tianyang's eyes met with the white-haired young man's eyes. Instantly, he felt as if his heart was being squeezed tightly. At this moment, he was completely suffocating. Now, he finally understood. The person in front of him was definitely not a great holy land. A great holy land was a 4th-grade heaven and earth spirit being. The Thunder Great Holy Land was a human grade. The Blood Great Holy Land was a spiritual grade. The Blood Soul Great Holy Land was a peak spiritual grade. As for Xianyuan Kongming, he was an earth grade. However, even if he was a heaven grade, it was impossible for him to give Tianyang such a terrifying, oppressive force. The surrounding space did not explode inch by inch. However, thousands of miles away, it had formed a spatial fracture zone. This was done intentionally by the white-haired young man. Otherwise, the space within thousands of miles would not be able to withstand the white-haired young man's power and would completely shatter. He had surpassed a great holy land and was a half-step holy emperor. A junior who is not even 100 years old can also force the Xianyuan family to such an extent. The white-haired young man said indifferently, "Such talent can be said to be peerless. However, since you're the enemy of the Xianyuan family, then die." "Damn it." Tianyang's expression changed drastically. He roared, and the heavenly sword shone brightly. A sword light quickly condensed. It represented Tianyang's strongest attack, the heavenly sword's second martial spirit talent, the heavenly sword. As if it was enough to destroy the world, the terrifying sword light ruthlessly blasted towards the white-haired young man. Xianyuan Combing's expression instantly changed. This sword, if he was hit by the previous him, he would definitely die. However, the white-haired young man's expression was indifferent, and he did not move. That sword light shattered 3 feet in front of the white-haired young man. How? Tianyang's pupils contracted. This sword could kill Xianyuan Kongming in an instant. It was only now that it had finished accumulating power. You have some strength. At this moment, the white-haired young man said indifferently. However, everyone below the Saint Emperor is an ant. It's the same for a half-Saint Emperor. Then he pointed his finger. There was no beam of light, and Tianyang's heart instantly disappeared. His body seemed to have been hit by a heavy hammer and was directly blasted several miles away. However, he crashed into the spatial barrier and spat out a mouthful of blood. His life force had fallen to the lowest point in his body. He was seriously injured. Chapter 13:15. A half-holy emperor. It wasn't just Tianyang. Xianyuan Qingming, Tian Hao, and Ling Yuhan in the Vientiane Sky Market also recognized the white-haired young man's cultivation. His face became incomparably pale. A holy emperor was the strongest existence in the mysterious sky great world. The white-haired young man was already a half-holy emperor. It could be said that he was the strongest in the entire mysterious sky great world. After all, a half-holy emperor was the only half-holy emperor. At this moment, Tianyang fell heavily to the ground as blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The power of a half-holy emperor was much more powerful than he had imagined. If Tianyang unleashed his full strength, he might be close to a heavenly great sage. However, in front of a half-holy emperor, he was just an ant. The immortal flame burned in Tianyang's heart, repairing Tianyang's body. Fortunately, Tianyang had already cultivated the immortal bone to the small success realm when he had entered the sage realm. Otherwise, that strike from before would have been enough to kill him. You can actually withstand one attack. At this moment, the white-haired young man said in a surprised voice. The white-haired young man moved and appeared 1,000 meters away from Tianyang. As the white-haired young man moved, the focus of the entire world seemed to have changed. The white-haired young man seemed to have become the core of this world. What kind of body constitution is this? The white-haired young man looked curiously at the immortal flame burning in Tianyang's heart and asked in surprise. The immortal bloodline was passed down from the Archean era. However, even though the mysterious sky great world was prosperous and had a deep understanding of the Archean era, they didn't know about the immortal bloodline. Xianyuan Kongming only knew about it because of Xianyuan Qingming. This bloodline is called the immortal bloodline, but it's just an exaggeration. In fact, it's a body constitution with extremely high recovery power. As long as the primordial spirit is destroyed, this young man will definitely die. Xianyuan Kongming said respectfully. Although he could kill Tianyang with just a casual attack, he still didn't dare to do so. However, Xianyuan Kongming still wisely chose to watch from the side. Even if he recovered to his peak state, he would still be as insignificant as Tianyang in front of a half-saint emperor. Undying bloodline? The white-haired young man raised his eyebrows. That's a pretty big name. He even claims to be a descendant of the immortal heavenly lord. I really don't know where that Tian Hao heard of this name and couldn't wait to put it on himself. Seeing that Tianyang almost had no strength to fight, Xianyuan Kongming ridiculed him unscrupulously. Undying heavenly sovereign? Hearing this, the white-haired young man's eyes narrowed slightly, and his expression changed slightly. However, it immediately returned to normal. The legendary peerless expert from the primordial era was something that I only managed to find after searching through all the ancient books of the Xianyuan family. However, there's no need to know too much. After all, even if they do possess the bloodline of the immortal heavenly sovereign, they're just ants now. Xianyuan Kongming laughed. Hearing this, the white-haired youth also nodded slightly. That's right. Although I can sense that there's a part of the Xianyuan family's bloodline in your body. However, since you dare to destroy my Xianyuan family to such a state, your only ending is death. The white-haired young man said indifferently, and in the next moment, he pointed his finger again. Boom! The heart that had just grown out of Tianyang's heart exploded again. Tianyang's body shook, and he spat out another mouthful of blood. This time, even the undying divine fire was extinguished by the white-haired young man's half-saint emperor strength. Damn it, the power of Tianyang's heaven-devouring secret skill was fading rapidly. Soon, it fell from the peak of the middle-level saint realm to the beginner-level saint realm. Although Tianyang's undying bloodline was circulating rapidly, it was still unable to retain Tianyang's life force. Master, seeing this, Ling Yuhan immediately shouted, tears streaming down her face. Tian Hao and Xinyuan Qingming also clenched their fists tightly. However, they could only watch as the white-haired youth killed Tianyang bit by bit, as if he was slaughtering a chicken or a dog. Great ancestor, this kid has many secrets. I hope that when you destroy his primordial spirit, you can preserve some of his secrets. Otherwise, letting him die in vain like this is more or less letting him off too easily. Xinyuan Kongming laughed sinisterly. Hearing this, the white-haired youth nodded slightly. You don't need to mention this. Invading the Xinyuan family, regardless of life or death, you have to pay a price. In the next moment, the white-haired youth pointed his finger again. Boom! At this moment, Tianyang's entire chest exploded. Even if the undying bloodline burned wildly, it could not ignite the undying divine fire. No matter how the divine wilderness heaven spirit art was circulated, it could not condense a trace of true Yuan. Tianyang's vision gradually blurred. His life force was flowing away like a tide. This physical body is quite tenacious. However, I'm not interested anymore. The white-haired youth looked at Tianyang, who had completely lost his ability to resist, and said indifferently. In the next moment, his right hand opened up. This time, I'll let your primordial spirit shatter directly. A supreme talent of a generation will have a more pleasant death. The white-haired youth said indifferently. In the next moment, his palm suddenly clenched. At this moment, in the Vientiane sky ruins, a space crack was suddenly struck open by an extremely terrifying force of ice. Immediately after, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Tianyang. What? Tianyang's scattered, primordial spirit condensed instantly. He stared at the figure in front of him and forcefully activated the power of his primordial spirit. Yuhan, what are you doing? I'm sorry, Master. I may not be able to see you again. The Nine-Nether Saint body erupted to its limit. The bloodline of the nine-tailed heavenly moon fox was completely ignited. A terrifying force of the nine nether yellow springs erupted from Ling Yuhan's body. It turned into a rolling cold current and charged towards the white-haired youth. The invisible murderous force was instantly blocked by a terrifying layer of ice. Immediately after, Ling Yuhan's face was resolute. Her entire body was burning with icy blue flames. Stop! Tianyang roared crazily. However, his physical body had been destroyed, and he could not move at all. As your master, I order you to stop. Tianyang crazily roared, while Ling Yuhan slowly turned around, a sad yet beautiful smile appearing at the corners of her mouth. I'm sorry. I'm not obedient. This time, I can't listen to Master. In the next moment, a terrifying force that had surpassed Wu Zun's peak, even surpassing the Sage-to-Be and the Sage realm, erupted violently. Everything within a radius of 1,000 miles was sealed by an icy blue ray of ice. Nine Nether Frost Sky Technique. Nether seals the nine heavens. Chapter 13:16. Underworld seals the nine heavens. Everything within a 1,000-mile radius, from top to bottom, was sealed in ice by the unparalleled power of ice. This power surpassed everything in the Xintian Great World and was close to the Sage realm. Just like how the heavenly sun could not shatter the barrier of divine energy unless one used the origin of primal chaos, not even a Sage Emperor could break through this ice seal. No! Tianyang's eyes turned blood red. His entire body burned with the undying flame as he forcefully repaired his body and rushed toward Ling Yuhan. Seeing Ling Yuhan gradually disappear into the ice, Tianyang's eyes actually started to tear up. Vast expanse, Holy Spirit. Didn't you say that the Sage Emperor is nothing in front of you? Get out here! Tianyang roared crazily as he came to Ling Yuhan's side and pulled her into his arms. Extreme cold. The moment they touched, it was as if Tianyang's undying flame was going to be extinguished and Tianyang's body was going to be frozen. When Ling Yuhan saw this, her lips curled into a warm smile. Master, let's go. Underworld seals the 9 heavens. It won't last long. Vast expanse, Holy Spirit. Get out here. Tianyang roared crazily. In the next moment, specks of golden light gathered around Tianyang. Instantly, they turned into the appearance of a little girl. At this moment, the little girl's face was filled with a complicated expression as she looked at Ling Yuhan, whose life force was continuously being eroded by this piece of ice. Your disciple is forcefully activating the ultimate meaning of the 9 Netherfrost technique, causing her body to be completely. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and tell me how to save Yuhan. Tianyang roared angrily. At this moment, his heart was trembling nonstop. Even when the Xinyuan family patriarch, the half-holy emperor, appeared and was about to kill him. In his previous life, when he was faced with a civilization that no human could resist, when the civilization was destroyed, he had never been as terrified as he was at this moment. He was afraid that Ling Yuhan had really died in order to save him. All right, the golden-haired girl could only nod. Her face was extremely grim. Right now, I can only retrieve the power of the 9 underworlds and bloodline that Ling Yuhan released. However, there will definitely be extremely strong side effects. That's the only way to keep Ling Yuhan alive. Plus, there's a time limit. 1 year. I can only control it for 1 year at most. If you don't resolve everything before then, even the master of the Heaven's Expanse Temple will not be able to save you, said the little golden girl. Then, without hesitation, she immediately attacked. A supreme power that seemed to transcend this world was released from the little golden girl's hands. The power wasn't strong, but seemed to be able to control everything. At this moment, the 9 underworld's energy that permeated the surroundings seemed to be controlled by an invisible hand as it rapidly surged towards Ling Yuhan. Ling Yuhan's life force that was rapidly fading slowly stopped at this moment. However, it only stopped. Ling Yuhan had long lost consciousness, and the life force in her body was extremely weak. Condense. The little golden girl shouted in a low voice. The endless 9 underworld's energy quickly condensed on Ling Yuhan's body. It froze Ling Yuhan in a terrifying block of ice. The only thing I can do is to seal off Ling Yuhan's life force. However, to save her, I can't do it alone. The little golden girl said solemnly. Moreover, with the 9 underworld's energy retracted, the power of the underworld sealing 9 heavens will be greatly reduced. Originally, this ice seal could last for at least an hour. However, now, it's a problem whether it can last for 10 minutes. The little golden girl said. Hearing this, Tianyang's body trembled. At this moment, a sense of powerlessness surged into his mind. Forcefully activating the undying divine flame, he probably didn't have the ability to escape at this moment. The little golden girl's body had also become much more transparent. If she wanted to bring Tianyang away, she would definitely leave traces behind. In the Vientiane Sky Market, Xinyuan Qingming and Tian Hao were in a mess. They wanted to bring Tianyang away immediately. However, with their strength, they would definitely leave traces behind. Even if Xinyuan Kongming couldn't track them down, the white-haired young man who was a half-holy emperor would definitely be able to find them. At that time, they would still have to die. Let me do it. At this moment, a cold voice was heard. Xinyuan Qingming only realized that Yin Xinyuan, who had released a terrifying pure Yin energy that almost froze the space, had woken up unknowingly. You are Xinyuan Bupos. Heavenly Lady, this isn't the time to acknowledge your family. Yin Xinyuan interrupted Xinyuan Qingming without hesitation. In the next moment, his figure flashed. He came to Tianyang's side directly. You? Tianyang was in disbelief. Wasn't Yin Xinyuan controlled by the demon slave seal and wanted to kill him all the time? Shouldn't she be watching from the side now? Primordial Xian Shi has the mysterious Yin energy and also has the powerful shadow evasion skill. If the mysterious beauty Yin body takes action, it is possible to escape from the Holy Emperor's pursuit. The vast expanse Holy Spirit said excitedly. At this moment, the ice seal in the distance suddenly shook. The white-haired young man moved. Oh no, I might not be able to hold on for more than 10 minutes. Seeing this, the vast expanse Holy Spirit's face changed completely. At this moment, Yun Xinyuan hugged Tianyang without hesitation. Streaks of mysterious Yin energy exploded from Yun Xuanyuan's body. Thank you. Tianyang smiled bitterly. At this moment, he could only let Yun Xinyuan carry him like this. In the next moment, Tianyang looked at the white-haired young man who could move his eyes. Hatred exploded from Tianyang's heart. This old ancestor Xinyuan had forced Ling Yuhan to use the 9 Nether Frost skill's ultimate skill and almost died. This revenge, Tianyang would not rest until he was dead. Old dog of the Xinyuan family, just you wait. One day, the Xinyuan family will be wiped off the face of the Xintian great world. All of you, just you wait. I will come and destroy the Xinyuan family. Tianyang roared. In the next moment, Yun Xinyuan brought him into the shadows and left quickly. It was as if he had disappeared from this world. 3 minutes passed. The ice seal on the white-haired young man's body was completely broken. Then, the white-haired young man waved his hand, and the ice seal on Xinyuan Kongming's body turned into true Yuan and disappeared. Old ancestor, it has only been a few minutes. They can't have gone far. At this moment, Xinyuan Kongming said hurriedly. Thinking of Tianyang's words, Xinyuan Kongming's heart trembled. He did not doubt that if Tianyang cultivated for thousands of years, he would have the ability to overturn this world. Hurry up and go after him. You might be able to catch him. No. The white-haired young man shook his head calmly with the arrogance of a half-holy emperor. Those below the holy emperor are ants. Chapter 13:17. Divine Central Continent, thousands of miles away. In a huge mountain. Rip. The sound of space being torn apart could be heard. In the next moment, 3 figures walked out of a pitch-black hole. Yun Xinyuan, Tianyang, and Tianyang hugged Ling Yuhan tightly, not allowing anyone to touch her. Even though Tianyang's body was almost frozen by Ling Yuhan's extreme cold energy, he was still unwilling to let go. He let Yun Xinyuan remove it a few times. It should be about time to reach here, Yun Xinyuan said with a pale face. She did not have a destination at all. She was running around randomly. Along the way, she changed her direction countless times to prevent the Xinyuan family from chasing after her. Fortunately, they had been running for 3 days and 3 nights, and there was still no pursuit. Only then did Yun Xinyuan stop. She had no choice but to stop. Otherwise, the crazy consumption of the mysterious Yin energy could cause Yun Xinyuan to faint. At this moment, a golden light flashed in Tianyang's body as he looked around. The heaven's expanse Saint Spirit was originally very solid. Other than the color, it looked like a normal person's body. However, at this moment, it became translucent like a spiritual body. The heaven's expanse Saint Spirit closed its eyes slightly and released waves of probing energy. After a while, it retracted it. It's okay. Other than demonic beasts and plants, there is no other life around. Hearing this, Yun Xinyuan was finally relieved. Although the heavens expanse Saint Spirit had never paid any attention to Yun Xinyuan and Ling Yuhan in the Vientiane Sky ruins, Yun Xinyuan knew how powerful the heavens expanse Saint Spirit was. Previously, when it attacked above the Xinyuan family, it seemed to have reversed the heavens and earth. It reversed the 9 underworlds' energy that Ling Yuhan had unleashed and forcefully saved Ling Yuhan's life. Such a method was heaven-defying. At this time, Xinyuan Qingming and Tian Hao also appeared in a flash. Looking at the Tianyang in Yun Xuanyuan's arms, their expressions were extremely ugly. Xinyuan Kongming, that old dog, I didn't expect him to have such a deep trump card. Tian Hao looked at the severely injured Tianyang, his face gloomy to the extreme. Even after 3 days and 3 nights, Tianyang's injuries showed no signs of recovery. What Tianyang said to Ancestor Xinyuan was the last of his strength. After saying that, he fell into a coma. His entire torso had been destroyed by the white-haired youth's terrifying power, leaving behind only the indestructible bones that were riddled with scars. It was also this indestructible bone that kept Tianyang alive. Otherwise, Tianyang would have been blown into two halves, and there would not have been a chance for him to forcibly ignite the indestructible divine flame and summon the vast expanse Saint Spirit to save Ling Yuhan. I didn't expect this kid to have cultivated 2 levels of the immortal divine body. After scolding Xin Yuan Kongming, Tian Hao walked over. Yin Xin Yuan, on the other hand, handed Tianyang to Tian Hao with some reluctance. If it wasn't because I'm too weak, why would Yang end up like this? Looking at the unconscious Tianyang, who would have died if it wasn't for the indestructible divine flame still burning on the indestructible bones, Tian Hao punched his own chest fiercely. He had overestimated himself. Wu Zun, who was only at the 7th level, wanted to take Xin Yuan Qingming away from the Xin Yuan family, causing him to be captured by the Xin Yuan family. If he had cultivated for another few hundred years and strengthened his immortal bloodline to a certain level, he would have directly broken into the Xin Yuan family. Why would Tianyang be on the verge of death and Ling Yuhan almost die? This isn't your fault. Seeing Tian Hao so sorrowful, Xin Yuan Qingming couldn't help but speak up. At this moment, Tian Hao sighed. I think it's better if I don't stay here. Hearing this, Yun Xin Yuan and the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit were both stunned. They didn't know why Tian Hao said this. However, Xin Yuan Qingming seemed to know Tian Hao very well. She wasn't surprised at all. I'm only at Wu Zun's level of cultivation, and Qingming is only at the peak of the half-saint level. The two of us aren't even as good as Yang Er. If we stay here, we'll only be a burden to Yang Er. Tian Hao said. Hearing this, Yin Xin Yuan couldn't help but say, but Tianyang killed his way into the Xin Yuan family for the two of you. That's right. That's why I have to leave. Not only me, but Qingming has to leave too. We've already been a burden to Yang Er once. If we follow Yang Er, there'll only be a second time and a third time. Xin Yuan Qingming said. Hearing this, Yun Xin Yuan seemed to understand something and nodded silently. Don't worry, we'll go to the Northern Wilderness Desert. The Northern Wilderness Desert is a wilderness. Although the Xin Yuan family is powerful, they don't have the ability to reach into the Northern Wilderness Desert. These are all the treasures I got in the Tianshao Great World, the Xintian Great World. Among them, there's a part of the immortal divine body's inheritance. Although I don't know if he got it, it should be helpful. Tian Hao smiled. Hearing this, Xin Yuan Qingming also took out her space ring. Please pass our things to Tianyang. Hearing this, Xin Yuan Qingming took the space bag and space ring. Her expression was complicated. If the Xin Yuan family, don't worry. There's also a space scroll that I made using the Xintian bloodline. Yang Er can use this to know if we're dead or alive. If we're being hunted, we'll naturally use the space scroll to teleport to Yang Er's side. Xin Yuan Qingming smiled. Hearing this, Yun Xin Yuan could only nod. Although Xin Yuan Qingming was Yun Xuanyuan's elder, Yun Xin Yuan was very unfamiliar with her. However, Xin Yuan Yin was extremely unfamiliar with his heavenly daughter. Now that Xin Yuan Qingming wanted to leave, Xin Yuan Yin could not say much to urge her to stay. After that, Tian Hao and Xin Yuan Qingming turned and left, heading toward the Northern Wilderness Desert. This place was not far from the Northern Wilderness Desert. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to leave so easily. A weak bloodline can actually awaken my undying thoughts twice. In Tianyang, deep in the Sea of Soul, a figure had a strange expression on his face. In front of him, Tianyang's primordial spirit, which was on the verge of shattering, was slowly floating. This bloodline density, it should be, I don't know what bloodline has tainted the immortal bloodline. Even if he has comprehended the immortal will, it shouldn't have made the original body come out twice. The figure pondered. Then, he touched Tianyang's primordial spirit with his finger. In an instant, it was as if something had rushed into the figure. Immortal eye, immortal bone? The figure was stunned. I didn't expect this kid to find 2 immortal divine bodies. If that's the case, it explains why his father's bloodline density is so much higher than his, but he can't find me even once. The figure chuckled. However, as the descendant of the immortal heavenly lord, how could he be beaten so badly? Then, the figure raised one of his hands, and a flame slowly burned. Tianyang's immortal bloodline also shone brightly at this moment. What's going on? The expression of Yun Xinyuan, who was guarding outside, changed drastically. He hurriedly turned his head to look. He saw a terrifying flame was burning on Tianyang's body. In the flame,